Go beyond. This is
We will call our regular session board meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Chairman McClendon.
Here.
Vice Chair Robinson.
Here.
Mrs. Hill.
Here.
Mrs. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Perez.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Mrs. Sermon.
Here.
Mr. Walker.
Here.
Mr. Wingate.
Here.
Mr. Macon. Superintendent Dr. Robertson.
Here.
Thank you. From there, we will move down to our pledge to the flag and meditation. Oh, sorry. I just decided not to approve the agenda. We'll have our approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Hill.
Yes.
Mrs. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. Perez.
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Sermon.
Yes.
Mr. Walker.
Yes.
Mr. Wingate.
Yes.
Chairman McClendon.
Yes. Now we will go to our pledge to the flag and meditation. Sorry about that.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Weiss. I'm the principal at DuPont Elementary. If everyone will please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. When I was asked to come represent DuPont to talk about something that was important in education to me, the thing that resonated was the power of a name. Words have meaning, and names have power, by an author unknown. I've been asked several times by coworkers, parents, and students how to remember all the kids' names. The honest answer is, I don't know. Names aren't something I'm naturally good at remembering. Most adult names don't always stick. I recognize most of our parents by who they belong to. Landon's aunt, Azaria's mom, Mateo's dad. When a fifth grader asked me how I knew all the names this year, I asked him how it made him feel that I knew his name. He told me he liked it, and it made him feel good. I explained it was more about the why than how when it comes to knowing the names of the students. I want every one of my students to know that I took the time to know their name. I learned it as they came in from car line, and I greet them each morning, listen to them in their classroom discussions, or served lunch in the cafeteria. I see them each day and learn more about them as they grow. Knowing a name is a sign of respect, a way for you to signal you care, and most importantly, a way to say that you value the individual. As we begin to plan for the next school year, it is important for us to remember that all of the 43,000 plus students that we serve have names. As we begin to look towards next school year, let's remind ourselves of the unique needs of each individual student as we demonstrate how special they are to us. They are the reason we are all here, and we need to make sure that our actions demonstrate how much we value their power.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will move on to our exemplars of excellence. We'll start out with Dr. Sharp, Dr. Stewart, and Mr. Bennett.
Yes, Attorney Bennett's going to do the recognition for us.
Good evening, board members, superintendent, members of the cabinet. It is a real pleasure tonight to be able to recognize this time not one, but actually two Hamilton County schools who have really achieved some excellence in an area of student competition that demonstrates intellect, it demonstrates creativity, it demonstrates perseverance. And I'm talking about the Tennessee Bar Association mock trial competition. This is an opportunity for students to learn a fact pattern involving a case, to learn controlling law, and then to basically try a case in front of seasoned, experienced judges in the area. And frankly, until recently, this was a competition dominated by private schools and homeschools. But in the last several years, my friend and colleague Charlie Poss has really done a tremendous job of making Hamilton County Schools a force in this area, not just locally, but really across the state. I'd like to invite the two teams we're recognizing tonight, Signal Mountain and CSAS, to come forward. Of course, Signal Mountain is consistently a power in mock trial, but this year, the students of CSAS did a tremendous job, and for the first time reached the finals for the district competition. Now, unfortunately, because of the pairing, they went against Signal Mountain, and so only one of the two teams could advance. But it was a close, hard-fought round. I thought that the students demonstrated outstanding sportsmanship, great creativity, a lot of grace to one another, and the end result is that two students from CSAS actually were recognized for the individual effort. Sohini Singh was best attorney, and Annabelle Hill, daughter of our board member, was recognized as best witness, but they lost by 2 points to Signal Mountain, which went on to be recognized as the fourth best team in the entire state of Tennessee. So at this time, first I'd like to recognize the CSAS students. Sohini Singh, who unfortunately, she has a solo in the strings, yeah. So highly accomplished folks. So Sohini Singh, Vicky Song, small and wave, Shrisha Kadambi, I'm sorry, Annabelle Hill, Isabella Ashley, Catherine Lazenby, and Arav Patel. Is here. Okay. Stuck in traffic, but on his way. So this is CSAS. I cannot tell you, I don't have the time to tell you how proud I was of these kids who tackled this problem. And what is it that I said? Good to great. And they started out good. Oh, I should also recognize Ms. Kelly Davis, the gifted teacher, who frankly did most of the work with these kids. I just helped tweak. They went from good to great, and I was so proud to see how hard these kids worked. So CSAS, congratulations. I look forward to coaching y'all next year. And I'll turn the podium over to Charlie Poss, but first, this is a little weird for me because I kind of thought from the very beginning that my new team was going to go as the team that I helped coach at least a little bit, and some of these students I coached when they were, or helped Charlie coach when they were freshmen. This team's very accomplished, and these seniors, in their time with the team, there were 3 face-to-face competitions, right? 3 face-to-face competitions at the state level. These seniors in their career doing mock trial got 6th in the state, 3rd in the state, and 4th in the state. And again, this is something dominated by private schools that start doing this in November. And so really the work that these kids have done really bears tremendous recognition, but I'll let Charlie speak to that.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you guys for having us here. My name's Charlie Poss. I'm one of our coaches. James Brooks is another one of our coaches. He's an assistant U.S. attorney, and I think he's working. He couldn't be here. And Lori Whitney is our school teacher rep, and she's back there. She's the gifted teacher at Signal Mountain. I also want to let y'all know that when we began our season, we wanted to get Howard High School involved in mock trial. So we met with them, and we were able to get 2 kids. One is Sandra Martinez. She's right here. We got 2 kids on our team, Chris Hamlet and Sandra Martinez. And Sandra was on the team that went to the state tournament. And that was the first time she's ever done mock trial, and I was really proud of her. And I hate to see this so I was really proud of her. And so hopefully Howard will have more kids because of the success of Sandra and Chris, that they'll have a whole team next year, or at least more kids involved. But I'll also introduce our team, and I'm a little nervous, but Caroline Burns, Josh Doolin, Jack Gibby, this is Sandra, William Wright, Adrian Andrescu, Logan Dapp, Emma Wu, Hannah Morton, Lydia Miller, and Caitlin Castellanette. These kids are incredible. Hannah and Emma are seniors. We had one other senior who couldn't make it. They've just been leaders, real leaders for our team. Like I said, or like Scott said, we've come in 6th, 3rd, and 4th in the last 3 in-person rounds. And I can tell you, I've been coaching since 1995, and no Hamilton County public school has ever placed during that time period. So these kids are amazing. And we had 28 teams in the local competition, a lot more public schools than we've ever had. Brainerd had 2 teams, CSAS had 2 teams, so hopefully we'll keep that going. These are amazing kids, and we appreciate your support, so thank you.
Awesome, and congratulations again to those 2 teams. Now we will move down to Dr. Sharp and Dr. Corbin.
Yes, Dr. Corbin will be delivering the recognition for us.
Chairman McClendon and board and the staff, I'm extremely proud of all of our student safety officers, but I would like to hold Officer Victor Talavera up for additional recognition. On Friday, January 7th of this year, I was contacted by Karen Glenn, who asked me to help in locating a missing 14-year-old student from East Ridge Middle. The student had been reported missing on December 10th, and she believed the child to be in danger. She feared that nothing had been done to locate her, and I was given contact information from the social worker at East Ridge Middle, Miss Ingrid Seymour. Miss Seymour informed me that she was concerned for the safety of the child, had contacted the East Ridge Police Department on December 10th, and it had not been assigned to a detective because they had nothing to go on the investigation. I contacted Victor after receiving the information, asked him if he would look into it and see if he could help find the missing student. He began a search in Power School and found 4 other students that had the same home address as the girl that was missing. 1 was in middle school and 3 at the high school. Victor went to the middle school and interviewed the 1 student, and then contacted the East Ridge Police Department and said they had an investigative lead, and they became more involved. And the lieutenant from the East Ridge Police Department and Victor went to East Ridge High School, where they interviewed the other 3 students. All 3 told the same story. They had not seen or communicated with the missing girl since the first week in December. Victor went back to Power School and found several former students that lived in the same apartment complex and a few that had lived in the same apartment. He began contacting these individuals if they had any information on the missing girl. After extensive research and some investigative luck, 1 former student shared the location with Victor where the missing girl could be found. Investigators were informed that the girl was pregnant and she was living with the father of her child off Hickory Valley Road. Around 7 p.m. on January 12th, a raid led by the East Ridge Police Department, Department of Homeland Security, and our student safety officer, Victor Talavera, was conducted on the house where an additional human trafficking case had already been filed. They found the young lady, took her into custody, and placed her. The boyfriend was charged with statutory rape and taken into custody. The young lady was placed in foster care and is doing fine. Student safety officer Talavera went far beyond the role of traditional school safety officer. In this case, and does regularly, All of our officers do much more than is required of them, but I believe that Victor went well beyond and is deserving of additional recognition in this case. So it's my pleasure. Victor.
Thank you, Victor, for your outstanding work and call to action on that. We're very thankful for you. Next, we'll move to our recognition of the 2022 Southeast Regional Coordinator of the Year.
Good evening, board members, chair, superintendent, staff members. I'm here tonight to shine a light on one of our staff members, Kathy Jennings, who is our coordinated school health coordinator. People don't always understand that there's a nursing piece of our health, but there's a coordination of school health. What does she do? Everything, everything. Till 7 o'clock last night getting strawberries off a farm because they called and said they were in and could we get them to the schools. At 7 o'clock last night, she finished delivering the strawberries. One kid today told her, "I'm not leaving until I get my strawberries." So it's a great program that she brought here, that she works tirelessly at doing. Traverse walls. Why? Because physical education is important for healthy minds and bodies. Water hydration. You know, this year, no water fountains for our kids, right? You can't let the kids go to the water fountains for the last 2 years. So Kathy worked with her grant money to put in water filling stations so the kids could put their get water into their bottles and stay hydrated, which is an extremely important thing. You can believe the number of kids that come to the nurse after playing outside because they're dehydrated and they have a headache. Water fixes that. Kathy goes above and beyond for the last 8 years. She is an absolute asset to all Hamilton County students and to our district. There was no competition for her because nobody had done as much for her, and this is across the whole state of Tennessee. So I'm thrilled to recognize her as the Coordinated School Health Coordinator of the Year.
Well, I couldn't do this job without a lot of support. A lot of people I'm seeing at this table up here have supported me, and thank you so much. I will say that this is great work. It's wonderful to work with local farmers. It's wonderful to see the kids' faces when I walk in because they know I'm always going to bring something. So you always feel like Santa Claus. I would really like to thank the central office too for their help in the annual pajama drive. You guys really step up and make a lot of kids happy. If you want to get involved this year, just send me an email. Thanks, y'all.
Congratulations again. Next, we will have our recognition of the SCOPE, the Student Congress on Policies and Education participants and SCOPE officers. I'm going to say something briefly, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Robertson. I've done this trip now, Sherry, 3 times, and it's incredible to watch our kids. They do mock school board meetings, then they go up and they debate with their fellow students from across the state. And through that process, there's people that get elected to office and whatnot. Something I got to do as a student in Hamilton County, and I've been lucky enough to go the last 3 years with that. But I'll turn it over to Dr. Robertson now.
So I'm actually going to turn it over to Riley Bellamy, who is the Vice President of the Superintendent Student Advisory Council, does an amazing job leading that group and obviously was a part of this. But Riley, turn it over to you.
Hello, thank you for having me here today. I am a senior at Hickson High School, and I just want to start off by saying that my time on the SSAC has been completely life-changing, really improved my leadership skills, and I'm thankful for that opportunity. But I'm also extremely thankful for the opportunity that we got to go to the SCOPE conference this year. If you're not familiar, SCOPE is the Student Congress on Policies and Education, and it is hosted by the Tennessee School Board Association. The conference consisted this year of 222 students from across the state and from grades from 9 to 12. We were able to learn from school board members, superintendents about school board policies, how the process works. Mr. McClendon actually was able to serve as a group leader this year, and I heard that was a great experience. I wasn't able to be in his group. But it's always a really fun time. I've been twice now. I went in the beginning of March of 2020, which is crazy to think about. I was on that bus right before COVID hit the world. But it's always been extremely important to me, and I've learned how to make a lot of connections. I'm extremely introverted, and my first time I went, I was so nervous. I arrived wearing 2 different shoes. But my second time through, I was a lot more confident and was able to make a lot of connections with people across the state and learn a lot about the school board process, and we had a great time. So I think that we're going to do some awards for people that attended. First up is Anaya Patel. Carrington Matthews. Sandra Martinez. And Riley Bellamy.
Thank y'all. From there, we will move to our presentations. Our first one is the Hamilton County Partnership Network.
Good evening, Chair, school board members, superintendent, and staff. Looking forward to spending a little bit of time with you all this evening just speaking about the partnership network, some of the work that we've been doing, and some very important recommendations that we wanted to bring forward for you to evaluate as you are looking at your budget and setting the budgets for the next school year. So I've been handed the clicker, so we're going to see how this works. Oh, easy to go, easy breezy. First of all, I would like to recognize the advisory board. Majority of the members are here today, and I did want to ask the members to stand, the advisory board, as well as Jessica, who's our support from the state. So I would recognize Wayne Brown, Dominique Brandt, Ardina Garth, Patricia McCoy, Dr. Ernest Reed, and Dakasha Winton. Just want to thank them. I really want to thank them for their hard work, the commitment that we've made. Just as a little bit of a background in regards to the partnership network and the advisory board. The advisory board was established 4 years ago as a part of a memorandum of understanding between Hamilton County Schools and the State Department of Education. So we've actually been in our roles on this advisory board for 4 years. It's a 5-year agreement, so we have 1 year that's left. And this is our 3rd year coming before you with a set of recommendations that we feel like is extremely important for the schools that are in the partnership network. And I'll take a moment to recognize those schools just as a reminder for everyone. It's Orchard Knob Elementary School, Woodmore Elementary, Dalewood Middle, Orchard Knob Middle, as well as Brainerd High School. So our recommendations that we're bringing forward is specifically as a result of the work that we've done with these schools and what we feel like is important in order for us to continue to move things forward in a positive direction for the students, staff, as well as the administration in these schools. I do want to take a moment to thank School Board Member Caritza Jones and Tiffany Robinson for your support your engagement in the work that we do, the superintendent as well as Dr. Stewart. We would not be able to accomplish and have the engaging conversations that we do on an annual basis and really sometimes a monthly basis with all the conversations that we're having if it weren't for your commitment. So we appreciate that. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward and take a moment to dive into our recommendations. As I said, this is the third year that we're bringing forward recommendations, and I do want to share my appreciation on behalf of the advisory board for the past year's recommendations, where you all have taken that into consideration, and we've seen it real time in the budget and the positive impacts that it's having on our schools. So our recommendations fall in 3 specific buckets, and I'm going to take a moment to go through each one of them, but they're in the area of equity, which is around opportunities and access for our students, partnership network programming, and staffing. So as we speak about this first bucket here in the equity area, this policy right here should look very familiar to each of you. It's a policy that passed unanimously by the board a couple of years ago. Something that's very important to us and the work that we're doing is ensuring that we're creating an environment of equity for all of our students, again, in particular, the partnership schools here. And I did want to highlight one area on here that's in red in the box, and I'm just going to take a moment to read the first sentence of it. I'm not going to read all of it, but it says equity is ensuring that every student receives what they need to help them reach their full potential, regardless of race, language, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, religion, physical abilities, and any other characteristics. So this is something that we are bringing forward as our first recommendation of just saying, let's continue to follow the policies that we've set for ourselves and ensuring that we're creating equity within our schools, within these 5 schools that are in our inner core area of the city, in regards to the students and ensuring that they have the resources that they need. Doesn't matter what their background is, doesn't matter what they look like. So this is the first of 3 in this area. The second that I would like to speak about is continuing the intentional commitment and ownership of that particular policy and regarding equitable resources. And when we say equitable resources, that is meeting our students where they are. It's about ensuring that their needs are being met. Understanding that each student that walks through the door of our 5 schools in a partnership network are coming out of different circumstances. Their needs are going to vary well across the board. So it's important for us that we're ensuring that those equitable resources are at the table and that our schools, our staff, our teachers are equipped to be able to meet the needs of our students each and every day that they're in the 4 walls of our schools. The next 2 that we have in this area is ensuring that the differentiated pay scale is fully funded through the general purpose budget. And this is one that is extremely important to us. This passed, and I would again thank you all for your commitment in including this in the budget. And it's something that is extremely important to our students, to our schools. We actually are seeing a high amount of retention with our staff in these 5 schools, along with our teachers and our administration. Really, it's close to 100% retention. That is unheard of in these 5 schools. And so that is telling us that this differentiated pay scale is important, it's necessary, and it's something that we really are asking for you to include in the general purpose budget and ensure that it is fully funded. Continuing to financially compensate our staff who complete district-assigned professional development. We all know in our professional lives and our roles that we're in how important professional development is. And our teachers and our staff in our schools are not immune to that. This is something that they quite frequently share that is important to them. And we've heard that in talking with the teachers, also in talking with the principals within all of these schools, how important this is. So we're asking for that to be continuously a part of the budget and that it is funded as well in regards to the professional development for our teachers, our staff in these schools. And then the last bullet that we have under equity here is developing a sustainable plan to ensure partnership network students have access to internet and portable technology. I don't think I have to sit here and preach to the choir and say how important technology has been over the last 2 years as we've gone through this pandemic for our students, and when we had to literally pivot overnight and everybody was at home. And we had such a majority of our students that we found out didn't have access to internet. They didn't have access to the technology that they needed. And so what we're asking for here is just to continue to ensure that those programs, those processes, and the dollars are in place to ensure that our students have the resources that they need to have access to the internet as well as portable technology. It's critical. We cannot operate in this world without having access to our phones. I just left my phone back there in my purse, and I'm actually having separation anxiety right now because who knows, I might miss a text message. But it's important that we understand how this is impacting our students when they don't have the access that they need. As we move into our second bucket, the partnership network programming. And the first bullet that we have here is evaluating all current initiatives really in the partnership network schools to determine the level of implementation and effectiveness. And what we're saying here, and we spent a lot of time talking with Dr. Stewart about this, talking with the state about this, as well as our principals, on the importance of ensuring that we have the right resources in place, not just having programs for the sake of having programs. When we layer too much on top of our teachers in the school and they're not able to teach, which is what they're there for, it becomes a bit more of a hindrance than progressing and moving us forward. So we're just asking for that continued evaluation of saying, are the initiatives that we have in the partnership schools necessary? Are they effective? And are we measuring them for the success of which we are expecting to get out of them? The next bullet is creating a plan that sustains essential, effective programs without the use of non-reoccurring grant funds. This is another one that's important to us. This is something that's been a part of our recommendations every year. Since day one, 4 years ago, keep reminding you of that, 4 years ago, I told the board at our last board meeting I was going to give them a raise. I was going to double their salary. So it's obviously working. They keep coming back. But it's important that the funds that are we're allocating in our budgets for the schools are reoccurring funds. It was surprising to us in our first year on this board to learn that our 5 schools were having to compete for grants in order to have the staffing, necessary foundational minimum staffing in their schools that they needed. And if that funding didn't come back the next year, they had to figure out where they were going to get those funds from. So I'm going to tell you, I'm not a grant writer. I don't portray myself to be a grant writer, but our staff and our teams have done a tremendous job over the years applying for grants and ensuring that they're filling the gaps. But again, we need to be sure that we're plugging in those gaps so that they can have the resources that they need. So this is our next recommendation here, is to ensure that the dollars that are in place are reoccurring dollars. Our third bucket is in the area of staffing. The first bullet is ensuring that the differentiated pay scale is fully funded. Ding, ding, we have it in here twice. It's because it's important. I just can't say that enough, and how much we've heard positive feedback from our principals in the school, and the fact that this is ensuring that we're retaining the staff so that our students aren't having so much turnover and gaps in the schools. The second is, again, developing and implementing a sustainable incentive plan to increase substitute fill rates. And this is ensuring that we have the teaching, staffing in our classes for our teachers in order for them to be able to do the work that they need to do. And the third bullet is continuing the implementation of the district equity-based staffing model. This is just your student-to-teacher ratio. We know that when we have a student-to-teacher ratio that's a little bit lower population, that students are able to learn at a higher rate. And so we're asking for that to continue to be in place and implementing that model and sustaining that as we move forward. And with that, those are our recommendations. I will take time to entertain any questions that you may have for myself on behalf of the board.
Ms. Robinson.
Yes. Thank you so much, Val. You and the partnership board do a tremendous job. And, you know, I know that you spoke about doubling your salary, but you need to quadruple it, you know?
I'm duly noting that.
But I do want to make sure that, I mean, everyone in the room really does understand that this is a volunteer board, and the group has been doing this work for 4 years, and I know that I'm incredibly grateful for that work, so thank you so much.
Thank you. We
You're
appreciate you.
such an asset. I did want to just ask a couple broad questions about the presentation. You brought up the differentiated pay scale to be fully funded, which I do also support that, and I know that we've talked about that in the past. I wondered if maybe we could talk about if TISA will impact that, or will be able to help with making that a reality. Do we have a sense of that?
Yeah, I think we're hoping that the TISA will be an opportunity for us to get that GP.
Not TISA. Okay, TISA. Thank you so much. Okay, well, that is good news. So I'm sure that your team is aware that TISA is coming down the pike, and we're currently really trying to understand it, but it should help bridge that gap, which is really exciting for the system, and then of course like any other district throughout the state that has these same needs. So hopefully we will have a good solution there. And then I also wondered on the evaluation of all current initiatives, I just wondered what is kind of the root of that suggestion? Like, are you guys seeing programs or hearing feedback that maybe the administrative team has already heard this, so I don't want to belabor something that they already know, but I am just curious, like, is that feedback coming from the schools directly or from teachers directly in the schools? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, it's through just our involvement and engagement. We're very involved with the schools. We are in a safe manner. We've taken time to tour the schools, visit the school, talk to the teachers, talk to the students, and we hear about the programs that they have within the schools. And for us, it's important to ensure that those programs are effective, they're efficient, and that we're really getting the measures and the results out of it. So yes, we've shared this as well with the school district and our thoughts around that, just continuing to keep that at the forefront. And the challenge is, and you know, I'll also speak from my job perspective, is that sometimes we get pulled into so many different initiatives and special projects, it doesn't allow us to focus on the core part of our job. And our focus is just ensuring that the teachers, when they're in the classroom, that they are spending that quality time with the students.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ms. Hill.
Thank you so much for, I have to push a different button. Thank you so much for these great doable ideas or recommendations. And I mean, I think back to years past when you all have done your report, and it's so clear that you all are just firing on all cylinders at this point. I mean, you're making strides. The fact that you've got retention close to 100% is astounding to me. And we have got to learn from that and I think lean into it. And we actually have, as part of our budget conversation for tonight, one of the things we've been talking about is if our BEP funding is raised, how might we, if it's a little more than what we're anticipating it to be, how might we allocate those dollars other than potentially putting them in fund balance? And I, for one, am very interested for a conversation about further funding the differentiated pay plan. Also, the idea about substitute incentives as part of the partnership schools, I think that's just a great idea. And then I did want to put a finer point on what you all said about creating a plan for sustained funding, so you've got reoccurring dollars rather than grant dollars. You know, that's something that we as a board talk about and wrestle with a lot, that once you do this good work for 5 years with additional support, financial support, and then what happens after 5 years, right? And we also in Hamilton County are fortunate to have a lot of money from ESSER, from the federal government. And we've been talking about how we're braiding it in, but the big question is what happens when that money's gone? Yes. And so your point about measuring effectiveness is so timely, that we need to be doing that not only for the programs in the partnership, but also for all the initiatives that we have in Hamilton County Schools, to know what's working and what is something that we need to double down on our investment, and what is something that was a good experiment, but didn't work as well as maybe we would have hoped. And I have noticed that we're doing that as it relates to tutoring, for example, in the summer, and after school supports. So, or I guess the summer reach program, and then the tutoring after school. So I appreciate that you elevated that about measuring what we do to know what works, and then figuring out how long term we're going to continue to pay for the things that we know work for kids. This work is, it requires sustained effort. And my colleague Caritza Jones' word of fidelity. You got to stick to it, and you got to do it well. So I appreciate what you all have done, and I appreciate the challenges you bring to us.
Thank you.
Any other? Well, thank you.
So I did want to just share a little bit about our next steps in regards to where we're going from here. And Ms. Hill, you hit it spot on. This next year for us is going to be about the sustainability focus. Once our group isn't in place and we're not here to be that advocate for these 5 schools, we really want to have some good programs, processes, and funding in place that's going to be able to sustain the schools. And then also for those schools that are coming off of the list as well. Woodmore is one that's in that category right now. So it's important for us that once they come off the list, that the funding doesn't just stop. There still needs to be some sort of funding and process in place to ensure that they have what they need in order to be successful and for it to sustain. Okay? All right.
Anything else, Ms. Jones?
No, she answered it. I was going to ask, like, what were the next steps toward preparation as we close out this partnership. So she answered that. And thank you all for everything that you've done, because I do know when we embarked upon this journey, it was kind of sight unseen. Yeah. But the schools have done very well, and I am so excited about what the other 4 schools will do. And come off the list, and then of course the state will have something else for us, but we got something for them too. Thank you all so much for your dedication and time.
All right. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. Next, we will move into our Future Ready 2023 update.
So real quick tonight, we wanted to take a quick opportunity and kind of bring back, you guys had asked for some recommendations or ideas on what we could do moving forward with this budget. So I'll turn it over real quickly to Mary Ellen and then to Penny to bring forth some recommendations for your consideration.
I'm actually going to kick it to Penny. She's going to start off on jump in and support her on some budget questions.
Great. So thank you all. We wanted to talk first about compensation and potentially some additional items that we can evaluate should we receive additional DEP monies. So just as a reminder, when we look at compensation, we look at it as a whole, not just salary, but also benefits, our clinics, our pharmacies, the amazing insurances that we have available to take care of our employees is very important. As well as in the past, we've offered different bonuses. And when we talk about differentiated compensation, I'll piggyback off of, the partnership network and what we're doing in the high need schools, but it also includes leadership pipelines and teacher talent pipelines and teacher leadership and other facets for professional development and things of that nature as well. So I wanted you to think of it as a whole. Also, when you look at our teacher compensation, we went out and researched in our area again where we fall. And you can see that we're pretty much in the middle when you look at different districts in Tennessee and those around us. And so we're currently with a bachelor's degree, a starting salary of $41,876. If you look at the highest nearby, that's actually Bradley County, and that highest overall is Nashville. And then when you look at the master's degree, again, we're still right there in the middle again, That 47,000 is Cleveland City Schools. So again, right, our next door neighbors. And then the highest again is Nashville. I also want you to note that as we looked at those in comparison with Georgia, just know, and you may have seen it in the news, that the statewide policy in Georgia is they did add $5,000. So
To everybody.
to everybody. Also, and Mary Ellen can probably speak to this better than I can, but you know that our proposed BEP estimate is around $184 million, and our best guess is that this could range from $1 million less to $3 million more, so we'll just know more when it's realized. So just some ideas when we consider that and evaluating it. Of course, we could do, in addition to what Mary Ellen has already put in the budget proposal, we could do an additional salary increase for all staff, and you can see that. We can also look at, we're proposing in the budget to move classified folks to $15, but we could look at what would that be to move them to $16. Or we're continuing to work with a comp consultant. We can look at a whole new competitive classified pay scale that would make adjustments, and also continue to invest efforts into differentiated compensation. Any questions?
So again, just wanted to, as we've presented the budget, we've heard from you of asking, what would it look like if additional BEP funding? So just wanted to put some really solid estimates around options that we've heard you discuss or that you've asked about, and make sure that you had as much information as possible in these considerations.
Ms. Thurman.
Yes, Penny, we talked about this before. Is this taken into consideration? I know we're hiring new people. If we're hiring new people on, we'll be making more than some of the ones that were there. Did we take care of that? Did we fix that
Yes,
in the new
ma'am.
scale?
Yes, and so the scale adjustments, we would adjust that pay compression. So someone who was making 13 and who's been here for many years, we would move them up above the flat 15 so that we would adjust for pay compression so that they wouldn't be sitting at the same place as a brand new hire.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Jones, I got you.
So, raises are good, right? Everybody likes money in their pocket. But as a social worker in a social service field, sometimes you can get paid enough, but you still get compassion fatigue. You wear out. It's a lot going on. And I asked this at the last meeting. I know we give them block grants, right? Each school gets a block grant. Is that right? Well, they used to be called block grants. What are they called now?
School resource allocation.
Okay. So in that allocation, is there opportunity for us to provide additional funding so that the administration can allocate funding to provide that, I just drew a blank. No, to help with the culture and climate, like team building things to let them know that they're cared about and they're concerned for them beyond a dollar amount. Because we ask a lot of them, and being in this new role that I'm in my other life, I see I'm in the schools more, and so I'm able to see more hands-on. We ask a lot of our staff. We ask a lot of them. We ask them to be whatever they are professionally, or classified, I should say, or certified. And then we also ask them to do SSP. We ask them to be in classes, which I know we're compensating for when they sub. We ask a lot of them. We're wearing them out. We're really wearing them down. And I feel like, I know we have standards and state regulations and all this stuff, and some of it is just not, Hamilton County Schools chooses to wear their staff out. I know that's not the case at all. But these kids test more than I ever tested in high school, middle school, elementary school, and I feel like I'm pretty successful. When I just took TCAP in the 9th grade exam to say I was gonna graduate. And when y'all look at my peers, we're pretty successful. In the state or federal government or whoever you are, we didn't take all these tests. we went to college and we're pretty successful, or we went to work and we're pretty successful, or military or whatever. And so it's a lot. I mean, like, it's a lot. And I literally had a conversation with an amazing English teacher who is leaving the classroom because she's sick of teaching what she feels like to a test. She can't teach anymore. That's what she said. I feel like I can't teach anymore. And so I feel like if we're asking all of this of them, yeah, salary pay raises are nice, but something else. And I know a lot of schools don't have the funds to do that because they use those funds to make up for other stuff they can't pay for with title dollars and all this kind of stuff. So what, I don't know, is there opportunity for that? I don't know, maybe an increase there to support the staff versus in their pocket? I mean, I ain't counting nobody's dollars, but I'm just saying maybe to allocate it that way so that you're able to do those kinds of things. I don't know, it's just a thought process I've been having.
And I do think that's something we can consider. I think that's one thing during this year, looking at, all the different ways that money gets to schools and, what's the best avenue for that.
Mr. Walker. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Mr. Walker.
I agree with Caritza, and I know, we've talked a little bit about this. I think our next steps as we go through the next months, next year, what I would like from you all is to figure those things that we've carried around for 4 or 5 or 6 years that somebody asked us to do a while back and now maybe it's not required, or find out some of the things that we can reach out to our legislators and say, hey, we've accomplished that, let's move on, because those are the extra weights and anchors that we're putting on our teaching staff. And I know each of you in front of us have to deal with those things as well. So let us help you lighten that load. I think along with what Caritza's saying, the money is nice, and if they're going to be loaded up with a lot of things and can move down the road for $5,000 more, then they can just say to heck with all those other things. But I think that the layers and things that we put on everybody in the Department of Education, from Justin down, let us help y'all lighten those loads and figure out where we can say we're done with this program, let's move on. And I don't know if that's a very general statement, but I hope you know where I'm coming from on that, and let us be your voice at those other levels that we can help y'all with.
Ms. Robinson.
I actually just had a question of clarification in this. So on the page 5, you have that the fiscal year 23 proposed BEP estimate is 184,488, but in the budget book we've got federal funds received through state at state education funds at 188,498,513. I was just wondering, is there a $4 million difference for a reason? I'm just not understanding.
I think there's some state funds are in there.
Okay, so it's just that it's not all, like this line item is just not all BG. Okay,
right.
Just wanted, okay. All right, so trying to better understand what you're telling me. Okay, so what you're saying is that okay, so you said on, somewhere in here, you said that we would be possibly like 1 million below what we're expecting or up to 3.8 million over. Okay. So if we wanted to do anything that we talked about on Monday, you guys think that it's going to cost about $2 million to move the needle. Is that basically what you're saying?
Very
Okay,
yes.
cool. Well, I expressed my opinion on Monday of like how I would want to spend that money if we were to receive the overage. So I won't really necessarily like reiterate that unless there is unless others want to like have that general conversation. I'd be happy to go down that path. But we did talk on Monday about the idea of maybe delaying the vote tonight on the budget so that we can really capture this money and really have a better understanding of it. And I showed support for that on Monday, and I do still support the idea of waiting to vote. So that we can just see if there's a great way to use those funds. So I don't know if the hope is to discuss and come to a conclusion on how we would spend it tonight, or if we could delay that too until early May. But I am curious, like if we were to delay the vote tonight, what would be the hope of the administration on how we would handle the funds?
Yeah, so our point tonight was hearing that desire Monday and seeing some heads nod is to put some actual numbers in front of you so that if additional funds did come through, that you're not just saying like, well, let's do one, well, you know now what a 1% pay increase costs, you know what adding $1 to the classified, you know, side would do. You see what, you know, going to that competitive pay scale that HR has been investigating. And so it wasn't necessarily for y'all to have a conversation tonight, but just trying to give you as much information as we could so that if you do push the vote to see if additional funds, you know, come in, at that point you've got this information to make an informed decision on how we want to allocate it.
Cool, that's great. I did wonder if by chance it's in front of someone, maybe what that actually would take the hourly rates to. So because we have a new proposed hourly rate in the budget, and then just adding $1 on top. I just wondered, like, does anyone by chance know off the top of their head, like, what that would mean for each of those positions?
In the budget, remember, it's proposed at $15 an hour, so adding $1 would be 16 at the minimum. And then to Ms. Thurman's question and Penny's response, there would be this includes like fixing that compression.
Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you. I appreciate this work. Really, really do. Thank you.
Mr. Perez.
So as well, thank you for the work. I think you're hearing the same multiple times from us, which is we're concerned. We're concerned about our teachers. We're concerned about our staff. We're concerned about retention. I asked the last time when we had a budget workshop, 78% of our budget is personnel. I've done this on separately with you, Ms. Houghton, on the question that we all get asked and accused of and so on and so forth about the administration, blowing up administration costs. So I thank you very much, and you know, maybe you can forward to others what you sent to me or however that works. But basically tracking, what was it we did 10 years ago, 15 years ago today, and overall, yes, of course there's an increase, but there's an increase along the budget, right? So it's not like all of a sudden we blew up. And I was actually looking to accuse and point a finger because that's always fun. But at the end of the day, there are some changes in some departments, and there are some increases that are increases because the demands, as everyone said, have become significant, and the opportunities are. So all that to say, we're concerned. I asked you this week, and I kind of want to point to that because I think the public, when we talk about $13 an hour, $14 an hour, $16 an hour, there's a reality. This came from a comment that Ms. Hill said regarding the benefits, that I'd asked, do all our staff have benefits? And she said, well, not all can take them because they can't afford them. That to me is actually a shocking statement, right? We want people to be protected. We don't create benefits hoping nobody takes. I know that's not why we create them, like hoping people don't take them. We create them because we know people may need them and use them. And so I was curious about the take-home pay. And thank you again. This isn't some brilliant Marco idea. This is thanks to the work of you all helping me answer questions that cross my head. But a general purpose employee, I'm going to read this that you sent to me, with HCS makes $13.10, basically, we'll say, per hour. That works out to $19,351 a year. I won't go through all the details. If a person in that situation chooses to take benefits, they will take, after 2 weeks of full-time work, home with them $380.65. That's 2 weeks of full-time work, okay? If they choose to risk it, as many do, or some may have options outside of that, but if they choose to risk it, they'll get to go home with $615 every 2 weeks. Gas is expensive, folks. We can blame whoever we want to blame on that, but it's expensive. And so if I think about every 2 weeks taking home $380, and I'm hoping to cover gas, food, rent, clothing, I mean, it doesn't take a genius, right? We can't do it. And so what does that mean for many of our staff out there? It means that it means that this is one of multiple sources of income that they have to look to. Now, I'm looking at the lower paid employees, and I know that's a fair question, but that's just a reality, right? At the end of the day, if a person works full-time, it may be that they walk away with $380 for that full-time job, or $615. And that's the concern here. I spend my life, a lot of it, in budgets. That's what I do. That's what I do professionally. I look at that. And math is a tricky little thing, even the new math. Because I can't take from here without taking from somewhere else. I've tried it. I've actually literally had CEOs say, but can't we increase that and still balance this? And I say, no. It's just that math's a tricky little thing. Like, you can't. And when 78% of our budget is personnel, think of the other 22% as utilities, everything else that we've got to pay for. And yet, we're in campaign season. I like campaign season. It's curious to watch it now from the outside. I hated it from the inside, so I apologize to all people campaigning. But I love all the conversations about we want bigger schools, better schools, this, that, all this, better pay for teachers and all that, but we're not going to get that money from anywhere. And so for me, I'm not mocking you. I get what you have to say, but at the end of the day, you got to get it from somewhere. So we're glad that the state's talking about it, and maybe that'll come from there. We're certainly not in campaign season talking about it. And that's fine. But I want, and I'm saying this for no other reason than I want our community to reflect on the fact that we, as a community, are saying it's okay for some people to work really, really hard for our students and pour their lives out there and go home after 2 weeks and get that paycheck of $380 in their bank account after 2 weeks' pay. By the way, I asked that because I happen to be married. I'll have to make that statement next. I happen to be married to a person who has a unique quality and patience and love to serve as a special needs assistant for many, many years, which anybody who knows is hard, difficult work. And I actually checked, I went back before she went through one of our programs to become a teacher. And I have said to Penny many times, and we lost an incredible individual, because those are unique and hard to find. Not because we, by the grace of God, we were okay, but it is hard for a person to justify to themselves that I'm working that hard. And I checked it out. I don't know how we made this. And she was coming home with $417 every 2 weeks after that type of work. And she, you know, she probably can't get mad for speaking for her publicly. But the reality is that's not sustainable. And it's not sustainable for us as a school district. And it's not. And so, yes, I also agree that we're looking at competitive rates with local districts for teachers, because that's another big fear that we all see out there that Penny and I have talked about, keeps us up at night, literally. We've got to do it. So thank you. I don't know how to invent new math for this kind of work. And if we don't increase the revenue line somehow, I don't know how to serve and support and love and retain and recruit and reward all our incredible staff and teachers in a way that will help our community move forward. But I do know this, a person walking away with $380 so that they can at least have health insurance is not what I hope we as Hamilton County want to reflect to the community. That's it. No solutions, just statements.
Ms. Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Perez. That was compelling. It gives me a lot to think about. I spend a lot of time talking about what it is to live in community and what we owe to each other just by virtue of us each being made in the image of God. And that's a lot to think about. And you say it's a statement without any suggestions, but I do think it's a timely conversation because here we are discussing the potential of what happens if. What happens if we've budgeted more conservatively than the numbers yield out, right? What if we have $1 million more or $2 million more or up to 3.8? And might we take a beat and think about one of our more intractable challenges? Penny, one question I have about Marco's statements about insurance. Can any employee of Hamilton County Schools access the health clinics even if they don't have insurance right now?
So all employees can access telehealth.
Okay.
Not necessarily the in-person clinic, but I opened that up during COVID, specifically because we did have a lot of school nutrition employees who during COVID didn't have access to medical care.
Okay.
And so we did work with one-to-one, and so they all have access. Part-time, no benefits employees, employees who didn't select benefits
Have
can
access to
still call
telehealth.
telehealth, yes.
I wonder, Penny, how might we make our health clinics open to all of our employees for free health care? And how might we offer a product for, what would be the word? Calamity? No, like a hospitalization product. So if, most of the time, 98% of our healthcare can be handled at the clinics, and they're fantastic. But in the event that someone were to become very sick, that's the biggest roll of the die, right? You're in a car accident or you have cancer. I would be very interested in innovative options for benefits. And maybe that's not in this go round, maybe that's not possible for $2 million, but that would be interesting to know. And the other question, the classified pay scale, if we were to invest in that, help me understand the benefit that offers to the system and to our classified employees versus an hourly rate increase.
So the compensation consultant has been working with Mary Ellen and I on reevaluating our current pay structure for classified staff. Is pretty complicated. It's a grade and step process. There are a lot of grades and there are a lot of steps. And historically, they've been tied to kind of years of service versus tied to, let's say, for example, Marco talked about an exceptional education assistant. His wife had done that in the past. Well, currently, those positions are paid the same as a gen ed assistant. That's much different work. So it's reevaluating what those job duties and tasks are and kind of, dividing those out and compensating more for those higher level tasks and things that are more demanding. And also maybe looking at, we have a couple of options that he's pricing out for us and helping us evaluate. One is maintaining a current level and step that goes to 25. Another is condensing it to maybe 15, and that gives us ranges that kind of mirror more what industry would do versus just grade and step. And so that allows us to be more competitive within those ranges. And so we look at the educational assistants who've been working with us for 20 years and make sure that we place them on the higher end based on their experience and skills. So it's allowing us more flexibility within that compensation model.
So more flexibility, but it doesn't sound to me like it necessarily would lead to greater retention, because we already have a step kind of scenario?
Well, we would have to take each person in each position and figure out where they would move on the new grade and step.
Okay.
And so it would positively impact each of those employees.
Right, okay.
Yes.
I wonder if we were to be able to develop a healthcare benefit product aimed for classified employees that, and even part-time employees, that would only be in our clinics and potentially only in our pharmacies and telehealth. I wonder, might we then be able to actually offer that same product to our full-time certified staff as an option that would cost them less? I mean, right now, the benefits are amazing. Private sector, Tiffany and I are blown away at the benefits.
Yes, our broker says that all the time.
But I wonder what savings might that offer us to have that? And please don't think you have to answer. But
We currently have a high deductible plan, which is less expensive, but we can definitely, I can call our broker tomorrow and have them start researching some other options of some other low-cost opportunities we could put out there, and then collaborate with the clinics to see what might be available and what that might cost.
Well, as an employer, I've always been really focused on, if I'm going to offer a benefit, I want it to be one that an employee can use. And to Marco's point, you don't, high deductible plans, frankly, are fake insurance in my book. If you're bringing home $618 every 2 weeks,
plan.
Unless you balance with.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a catastrophic event, right?
Yeah.
And so, so that's why I think about, we have this amazing resource in our health clinics that not everybody has that kind of thing. So
Right.
it would be really cool if we could figure out a different way to use them. And just to my colleagues, I would say, based on this conversation, I'm really interested in the possibility of looking at some kind of blend of the classified and differentiated. And I even wonder, might there be some differentiated types of compensation for our classified employees? $1,000 bonus for a given task for a classified employee when you're making $19,000 a year. $20,000 a year that's a whole lot more, right? Than a 0.5% raise on a $56,000 a year salary. It's just a game changer. I'm glad that we have the opportunity to talk about this. Thank you to Rhonda and Joe and James 2 or 3 weeks ago for asking these questions and getting us to this point in this conversation.
Before we move on real quick, I wasn't here Monday, and I know we'll talk about this a little farther. I know. Doing some quick math, I'm analytical on numbers. If I don't see numbers, it doesn't register, and so I've done all kinds of math sitting over here just a minute ago. So we're currently about $1,600 behind Bradley County on a bachelor's, and we're about $2,200 behind Cleveland, and $6,000 for Nashville on a master's, and $5,000. Even if we do a 2.5, say we add 1% to the 2, and they do a 2, we're still at $1,600 behind them, and we're $2,300 behind Cleveland. Somehow, some way, in the next several years, we got to fix that. If I live in Ottawa and I can make $2,000 more by driving 10 minutes to Bradley County, it just doesn't make much sense for them not to do that. Nashville, I kind of throw Nashville out there just because the cost of living is so high there compared to here. But the fact that we're getting beat by Bradley and Cleveland, and of course Georgia. East Ridge, Georgia line backs up to the school property, and you live in East Ridge.
Right.
You're 5 minutes from an elementary school, and you can make $5,000, $6,000 more. And it's no big deal. And so we do have that to our disadvantage here. And of course, I sing your praises, Penny, for the job y'all do. But I mean, I'm a competitive person and money talks to people. I think Ms. Jones brought up a good point, and it's something that me and Dr. Robertson have talked about, but how do we do stuff that doesn't cost money? You know, I think one thing that we have all heard is benchmark testing. Do we go from 3 benchmarks to 2 benchmarks, or do we do something along those lines? I mean, have a fiance, get to say wife next month, so that's good. Fiance, and I've seen it up close and personal this year. The stress that we put on our teachers above and beyond their daily job of teaching. And so I think that this administration can easily find ways that we can support our teachers. And I think the school, the block grants or whatever they're called now, is a good way to do that, especially when we have, I mean, I went into Delwood Middle School last semester on one of the asynchronous days. And it was like the last 2 hours of that day the teachers were there. It was like, okay, we're going to get together, we're going to talk about things, we're going to make sure we're all good. And teachers leaving that meeting, going into another meeting that we were having there, you could just kind of tell they were like, weight had been lifted off their shoulders and stuff. So looking at creative ways to do that. I also think, how do we utilize our clinics? Because I don't think, from just conversations, our utilization rates are probably where we want them to be. So I think it's probably a smart thing, as Ms. Hill said, to look at how do we get creative to get those utilization numbers up, and what products can we offer. You know, can we go to one-to-one health and say, hey, can we do this, or with our broker? One, to get those numbers up, and two, it could be a really easy way for our employees, especially our hourly employees, our classified employees, coverage to really good health care. I mean, I've been through the ringer this year post-COVID, and that clinic and one-to-one health and that pharmacy have been, I mean, incredible. I just, before I came here, I had to go pick up 2 things at the pharmacy, took 2 minutes, it was free, walked out. And so I think that's something that we could really look at, just to see if we could open that up to our classified employees, and any employee that doesn't have health care, can they use those, because they're a great thing. So I thank y'all, and I think we'll be talking about this. Oh, sorry, Ms. Thurman.
Yes, I just had a question. We were talking about the benefit package that's worth something. Do we know how much in Bradley County that they have to pay for their health insurance, and what kind of benefit packages they have? I mean, that really, because we're figuring, how much is our benefit package worth? 10, 12, more than that now,
Yes,
I'm sure.
more than that now.
More than that now. So we really have to figure that in. So do we know how much they have to pay for their health insurance and things?
I'm not sure exactly what they have to pay. I can research that. They're on the state plan, so that's more expensive, I know, and going to the doctor is more expensive, and they don't have access to the clinics and the pharmacies and the other resources that we do. We have free dental insurance now. Actually, if you look at our medical insurance, it's $100 a month for employee-only coverage. Now, that's expensive if you only make $19,000 a year, of course. But if you go out to the market and you look at other employers and industries, and then what we offer, it's bar none. Even our brokers will say that. That is a great point that we need to continue to emphasize.
Yeah,
as
we
far as our
definitely need to
benefits.
consider that, because
Yes.
it makes it look bad, but I bet you, when all is said and done, that there's not that much difference at all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Penny, can we
And
send the pay scale expanded out?
Absolutely,
Because
yeah.
like about I think at the 10-year point,
We catch up
actually
to them.
surpassed
Yes.
Cleveland and Bradley County.
Yes.
Just-
These are starting teacher salaries, and to Dr. Robertson's point, by about the 10th or 11th year, we catch up to them.
Right.
So, yeah.
The only point, and Ms. Thurman, that's a great point. I know our pool of teachers coming out of college is a lot smaller than it once was, and I also know what it's like to be a 22-year-old, and when you see $47,000 versus $43,000,
Yeah.
you're not thinking benefits. You're seeing that's what you're seeing, and I think
Right.
going and making sure that we're educating them on our benefits. which is a big thing, but to the point of and we do catch them up, but we want them to start here so we can catch them up and not go from
Right,
there to there.
right.
So,
And to your point, the 22-year-olds, they're not thinking about, we talk about retirement and insurance, and, they're young and healthy, and so they don't think about those things until later. So when you hit my age, you start to worry about it.
any other, Ms. Hill, do you have anything?
Oh, no, sorry,
okay.
I didn't start.
All good. Okay, we will move on from that to our board member disclaimer statement. We'll start with Ms. Thurman and work our way down.
Okay. I declare that I have one relative who works for the school system, and if the board's vote on the budget may have an effect on my relative's employment, even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
I declare that I have a relative who works for the school system and that the board's vote on budget policies, etc., may have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
I declare that I have a relative who works for the school system and that the board's vote on budget policies, etc., may have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
I declare that I have the wife and sisters-in-law who work for the school system and that the board's vote on budget policies and everything else may have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
I declare I have a fiance who works for the school system and that the board's vote on budget policies, etc., may have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
I declare that I have a family member who works for the school system and that the board's vote on budget policies, etc., may have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
Okay. That will bring us down to the approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Anyone want to pull?
You have to vote on it first.
No, we've got to pull now.
Okay, okay. I would like to. No, go ahead. Is he ready? Okay. D8, so 8D1A.
Can you repeat that again, Ms. Thurman? Sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry. It's 8D1A under contracts and bids, the Erlanger athletic trainer contract.
Okay. Any other items? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Sermon?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Wingate?
Yes.
Chairman McClendon?
Yes. Ms. Thurman?
Yes, in this contract, I notice it says here on about the third paragraph, I guess, it says it will grant the Director of Procurement the authority to renew the contract for up to 3 additional years and to execute any and all associated documents if doing so is in the best interest of the board. I need to ask Scott, I guess, Scott, I think all contracts need to come before the board. I don't like the fact that we can renew grants without coming before the board so that we're aware of what's going on. Is that what I'm reading here can happen?
So the way this reads, and for background information for board members who maybe have not had this conversation before, the general rule of thumb is that the comptroller's office likes the board to limit the reach of a contract to 4 years. There's not a state law that requires that, but that's the comptroller's advice, because that way, every time a contract comes up, a sitting board member has an opportunity to vote on whether it's good or not. If you put a contract out for 5 years or 6 years, then it's possible it escapes the attention of the board and the public doesn't have the opportunity to pass muster on it. So the underlying contract here is a 3-year contract, and what is being proposed here is that the board delegate to the administration the authority to enter into another 3-year contract without bringing it back to the board. I've actually had some discussions with Dr. Sharp about that, and I've suggested that in view of this board being the when it enters into contracts, it might be more appropriate to take that clause out. But I defer to Dr. Sharp and the administration. And if they'd
Can I
like to
say
comment.
one other thing? You know, we're going to be having 2 new board members too. I think they need to, you know, I think they need to be aware of contracts as they come up, because they're just going to be seeing them for the first time.
Under Hamilton County's board policy, let me be clear. It is legal for the board to delegate responsibility to the administration to extend contracts. So you pass on it one time. If that's something that the board wants to do, my recommendation would be that become part of your board policy, so that those are done with all of your contracts, rather than just one here, just and one there, because that's a way for things to fall through the cracks and get overlooked. I think I hope I answered your question.
Yeah.
So if you could either approve this as it's written, or if it's the pleasure of the board, you could approve this with that phrase deleted. And then that would require a motion to approve it without that clause.
And I don't know if an additional option would be for us just to bring back a new memorandum next month for approval that has that taken out of it. We could go either way.
It's totally it's up to the administration.
Right.
If you wanted to approve it with that out, then the board could do that. So you could move to approve without granting that authority, and the minutes would be clear on that, right, Ms. Ford?
Yes, that would. Certainly would.
And that way you wouldn't have to bring it back. I defer to the administration whether they need this done now or there's time to do it later.
Okay, so I need to make a motion, and then if there's any more discussion, we can discuss it. Okay, I make the motion that we remove this paragraph from this contract.
I'll second that.
Just for clear, what exactly? I think it has a number next to it. Do you know exactly what? Just so we're clear for the minutes.
Yes, it is Roman numeral 5, consent agenda. It is under D,
No.
CFO, and
It's
then
Roman
item.
number 8.
No, it's A. Yeah, I just meant in the actual
What did I say?
contract.
I can't read. I'm sorry. It's the reason we
It's
don't
the
use
third
Roman numerals
paragraph.
anymore.
Okay, that's all I was.
So it's under CFO, bids and contracts, and then it's item A, the athletic trainer request for proposal award
third
to
paragraph.
earlier.
Well, but whenever you say third paragraph,
Oh, I'm sorry.
number 3, billing and compensation, that portion.
If you look on the cover memo, Ms. Robinson, none of the contract itself. The contract is fine. If you look in the cover memo, third paragraph down,
The director.
Gotcha. Okay.
Ms. Thurman's motion is to strike that paragraph.
Is there an addition? Okay. So it's
So-
just strike, not add new language.
Correct. So the effect of her motion would be that when this contract is renewed after the 3rd year, it would come back to the board.
But it still remains the same contract, sorry.
That's
It
correct.
still remains that for an extension.
Correct, yes, sir.
Yep.
Extension,
Right.
When the board would have to approve
So we had a motion and a second. Motion by Ms. Thurman, second by Mr. Wingate.
By Mr. Walker.
Or Mr. Walker.
Mr. Walker was
That was Wingate.
I'm sorry.
I had Walker.
Ms. Wingate.
We're good.
it. They look the same.
They don't.
No, they both start with W. It was Wingate.
And so we're clear, Mr. Chairman, the motion here is to approve the contract as drafted. The difference is that the administration would not be able to automatically renew this in 3 years. It would have to come back to the board for renewal.
Gotcha. All clear? Okay. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Sermon?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Wingate?
Yes.
Chairman McClendon?
Yes.
Now we need to vote.
No,
did it.
that was it.
Okay, that's
That
it.
was
You did it.
Okay, we will move down to administrative business matters. We have Chief Talent Officer Penny Murray. The first item is the differentiated pay plan for 22-23. Any questions about that? Do I have a motion and a second?
Move to approve.
Second?
Roll call.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Sermon?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Wingate?
Yes.
Chairman McClendon?
Yes. Next item is new position request, District Athletic Director. Do I have a motion and a second?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Thurman.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, this position, if I'm not mistaken, I hate to call him by name, but I don't know any other way to say this position. Is this the position Brad had? Is that correct? Okay, and in that position, I know that there were a couple of things that he did. He took care of, I guess there were some things, it seemed like the two things that he did had absolutely nothing in common with the other.
Yeah.
One of them was being athletic director, and the other one was hearing discipline, student discipline, okay. He had both of those to do. And I know he was just pretty much overwhelmed in that job because, number one, he didn't have a secretary to help him do things. Am I correct?
Well, Tamara McCamey in the operations office supports the discipline side of it with sending out letters and all the paperwork assigned.
But I know it was kind of an overwhelming job. Okay, so I hate to think that we may have gotten rid of somebody that was probably doing a pretty good job because he couldn't get enough help, enough support in there. But the question is this. So this person will be doing the athletic part. So that would still be the same job he had. And now the discipline has been delegated somewhere else. Who is doing that now?
So we still would have the position that we currently have, the combination of athletic director and the disciplinary hearing authority. So that position would stay there. This is a new position which allows us to split them. Does that make sense? So we'll hire someone as the district athletic director and then somebody that is solely responsible for helping in Dr. Drake's office with discipline, doing the disciplinary hearing, piece, and it's going to be part of some of the changes that we're making to address bullying situations and the process there.
Okay, but since I'm an old timer, I remember, I think Lee McDade used to do all those jobs.
That's why we're bringing this up.
And it seems like that there's, okay, so this person's just going to be doing that one job, and I guess I can't understand why we don't already have someone to take care of the discipline hearings. Someone, I mean, because it's already been delegated back to them at this point, right, since we don't have anyone. Can that person not continue doing that without having to add someone else in the administration?
So we could. I mean, I hear what you're saying. My thought around this is that you're right that when Dr. McDade was here, he was doing that, and say on the record, I mean, we could question how well he was doing it, right? But it's hard for me to justify someone at that level spending literally 2 days, because that's what he was spending, 2 full days on disciplinary hearing authority, right? And at that point, we had a different setup because there was not a committee. It was simply Dr. McDade hearing them, making the decision, and then they appealed it. Now, because of state law, we've addressed it to where we have a disciplinary hearing authority, so that position's in charge of recruiting administrators to sit on that board, making sure that they're trained, fully aware of what state law is and how they're supposed to conduct the meetings, and then holding the meetings. What this will allow that person also to do is really to dig in. I mean, again, we keep hearing about discipline issues. We keep hearing about bullying incidents. It's going to open up time for that person also to assist Dr. Drake in dealing with those issues and being more proactive in supporting parents through those situations.
Okay, well, I just needed to be clear on that because I'm just real confused about what the athletic person and the discipline hearing person had, why those two were even in the same office to begin with.
Yeah, they really didn't. I mean, it was just trying to fit 2 responsibilities that didn't really have anything to do with each other into one position.
Yeah.
Ms. Thurman, if I could interject, those were 2 areas that I think in recent years we became aware that there were certain legal obligations, legal compliance issues that had to be that had to be given priority. And Brad was sort of a victim of don't worry about the mule, just load the wagon.
Yeah.
And so he had two tasks that, as you pointed out, didn't really relate to each other. And during that time, we spent a great deal of effort, starting first with Dr. Bradshaw and then Dr. Robertson, substantially rewriting the discipline code to provide a lot more consistency around the district, so kids were treated the same school to school to school. And I'm not saying that it's perfect now, but it's better than it was. And then with the athletic side of things, for Title IX issues and for a host of other reasons, that's become increasingly important over time. So as I understand the intent of the administration here, you've got two very important functions that don't have to be together, so there's no reason to put them together.
No.
So.
Okay, well, that's fine. I just need to get some clarification about, it seemed like we hired some people, the behavior specialists, we've hired all kinds of behavior type people in the central office, and I just wondered what everybody was doing. And,
So,
I mean,
Ms.
if
Thurman,
this-
can I point something else about that
Yes.
expanded athletic director's role?
And I don't have a problem with the expanded athletic director. I just want to know why he had both jobs to begin with and who's doing what now. Yeah.
I agree with you. That's
Yeah.
why, that's why
okay.
we're
Go
bringing
ahead,
it.
I'm sorry.
The board last year approved us spending money on a Better Way Athletics, which is kind of a character education, almost culture initiative within our athletics department. So the expectation of the athletic directors to be heavily involved in supporting coaches, training coaches, making sure that we're getting the culture within our athletic programs correct. And so again, by putting it into two different positions, we hope we're going to be more effective in both, because we've heard clearly that we're not doing a great job in either one.
Okay, thank you. I just need some clarification. Thank you.
Mr. Smith.
We just pulled Brad's old job description, his duties, and there's no way. I mean, no way. I'm glad we're doing this and splitting those two jobs, and they are both vitally important. But here's what I heard you say, that Dr. Robertson, that I think's vitally important. We got a discipline issue in our school district. We just do, and I don't think we talk about it enough. And you know, we talked at length a while ago about teachers' salaries, and that's not why teachers are leaving the field. You know, it's because of the way students behave. I believe that with all my heart. And these kids are getting tougher and tougher. And I know we can't fix the home, and we can't legislate morality. I understand all that, but we got to get a handle on bullying and discipline in our schools and change the whole culture. So what I heard you say is this new person is really going to take a lot of that on, and
It will be part of a comprehensive
yeah.
plan. It won't be one.
I understand that,
For
but
Dr. Drake to have the resources to.
she needs that.
That's
She
right.
can't do it by herself either. So I just think it's a great idea to split these two jobs.
Mr. Wingate.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to say I'm wholeheartedly behind this. I actually had a conversation with Dr. Robertson a couple months ago. I got on the board 6 years ago. I was thankful for the work that we've done in academics and for the opportunities that we've given students to thrive academically. And we all know we're not where we want to be yet, but we've made some great gains, some historic gains, and I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for the work that has been done by the board to put a plan out there and say, here's a vision, here's where we want to go, here's where we want to be better, and then thankful for the school district for doing the work, teachers doing the work, the leaders leading in that work, and I'm so thankful for that. And I told Dr. Robertson my kind of personal challenge to myself now is I want to see us take that excellence and move into all the other facets of what we remember about school as kids, and developing the whole child and getting into those extracurricular activities, not just athletics, At most schools, 20 to 35% of the student body are involved in sports, band, chorus, the arts, mock trial, whatever it is. And if we're not doing those things well, it really hurts culture. When you've got those students who are not just high achievers, maybe they're low achievers, but they're staying engaged in school because of the extracurricular activity, and in that extracurricular activity is done with intentionality, and it's done trying to create something of value, trying to add to the educational program that they're already getting between 7:15, 2:15, 9 and 4, whatever it is, and then you see those kids buy into that, it changes culture. It just does. It goes so far in changing the culture of a building or just maintaining culture in a building. And just good order and discipline in a building, because there's something they want to be a part of. They value that. When they're in that program, there's an expectation and a standard to be able, because when you're in that program, that's a privilege, right? That you don't have the right to be there. And it's different than being in the classroom. And so I just think that if we're able to do that, and I just forwarded to all of you all Mr. Jackson's, all of his responsibilities, and it is overwhelming. And he did have those two jobs, and I've known Brad Jackson for almost 30 years, and we've talked about some of these things. He's overwhelmed, and really, as athletic director, I'd say 5 to 10% of his time he was able to devote to athletics, and had some good ideas about, hey, what can we do, and where can we go with this, but just didn't have the time to devote to it. And so I think this is a big deal. I'm not an advocate of ever adding to administrative positions or creating larger bureaucracy. But when I look around at what other folks are doing, and sometimes we get unfairly compared to our neighbors, and it's apples and oranges, because they're just tiny school systems, and they're able to be more nimble and agile and pivot and do things a lot quicker than we can with 80 schools and 45,000 students. And we've talked about that before when you talk about change. But I just think if we've got someone, and I'll be honest with you, we did it with the arts, and we saw the difference that it made in our art programs in our schools. If we've got someone who's devoted to athletics, that's all they're thinking about from the time they get up to the time they go to bed, that I think we're going to see some benefit. And listen, as somebody who's spent my life in athletics, I get it. There are a lot of folks who give athletics a bad name. There are. But there are also some folks that when they do it well, it's a game changer. And we've all gone to school or grown up with people who influenced us. Maybe they were the football coach, baseball coach, wrestling coach, but most of the time when they're an excellent coach, they're a dang good teacher. They just are. And I really want to see us add something of value that our community can go. They're intentional about trying to do that well. And I'll be honest with you, right now, our middle school athletics, we don't do it well. It's bad. And I've gotten a front row seat to it the last couple of years. And I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. It's been 20 years in the making. And we gotta do something put something out there that people value and want to be a part of. And I think when you do that, families are buying in, kids are buying in, and it goes a long way in what the school day looks like. And so I'm a big fan of this. I can't wait to see where this goes and how it affects our school system. So thank you.
Mr. Perez.
So just very briefly to add to that, we're all saying the same thing, but I think in overall as a school district, I think it's time to start focusing on some of these things further. To a comment, what the band teacher at Red Bank High School once said to me, I'm the only one who walks 4 years with these students. And to Dr. Wise's comment about knowing a student's name, we're all, even me at my age and how old I am now, that forget people's names all the time. I didn't know what was going to happen. But we all like being known, and our students really need to be known. And the investment in every, whatever extracurricular that we can create in order for a student to find their place and their identity and to be known by a teacher who will walk with them for 4 years, whether it's a coach, whether it's whatever it is just something that I think changes. I think that was a great statement, like changes the culture even of our community as a whole. So I Unlike Mr. Wingate, didn't grow up in athletics, but I support anything that will create that opportunity for any one of our students. So thank you.
Ms. Thurman?
Brad's gone, correct? No way we could get him to come back. I just love to see what he could have done with this if he had had that as being his only responsibility. I think he would have done a great job, and I just take that. I don't know when this other one got dumped on him, this other responsibility, but I love Brad. I just hate he's gone. I'd like to have seen what he could have done with this. Thanks.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Sermon?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Wingate?
Yes.
Chairman McClendon?
Yes. That will bring us down to Chief Operations Officer tuition rates for the 2022-2023 school year. Do I have a motion and a second?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Thurman?
I just wish that we would explain to people how we come to this number for the tuition, just for public information. Whoever can explain how we come up with this number, I know, but not everybody here does. So just tell them how we come up with the amount of money that we charge for tuition for out of state and out of county, the difference.
So it's looking at the contribution that we get from the state for those students, so they have to make up that difference if they're in-state, because it's the county contribution that we're getting that covers that piece, and then for the out-of-state, then it's a state contribution.
So we look at how much the county gives per
Right,
pupil,
per
and then how much the
student.
state gives per
Because they have to
pupil. And
make
if you
up that
live
difference.
in the county, outside the county, you just have to pay the county part, and if you live outside the state, you have to pay the county and
Right.
state part. Okay, thank you.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Sermon?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Wingate?
Yes.
Chairman McClendon?
Yes. That brings us down to board matters. To the Chief of Opportunity and Access. Haven't said that one yet, so Dr. Parker. First item is request approval for Chat Academy Charter School applications. Or application. Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Ms. Thurman?
Yeah, I guess I'd just like to know a little bit about it, since we just found out about it. Can you kind of give us some idea about what they are, about what they're all about, and what they're hoping to accomplish, and what they're, yeah.
Sure. Thank you for the question. Earlier in the year, Chat Academy presented a proposal to be an English immersion school for 6 through 12, and there's been some conversation about what that actually means. And Nolan McDaniel, the administrator who will be opening the school, is here tonight, just in case I don't answer the questions that you have. So thank you to Nolan for being here tonight. They seek to help support schools that have Hispanic students, and they would like to recruit 50% English-speaking students and 50% non-English speaking students, specifically Hispanic, to serve in the core of our district where we have a lot of non-English speaking students, and work to support a program where the curriculum is delivered in a way that I hope I can get this right, the English-speaking students get immersed into the Spanish language and vice versa. So the curriculum, they have to offer the same things we offer, but it would be the modality of how the information is delivered and the programming is delivered.
Is there purpose to get the students immersed in English to learn the English language, correct? I mean, that is their, because I think that Tiffany and I have had this conversation before about a school that I think she knew about in Florida that did pretty much this same thing. Am I correct, Tiffany?
Yeah.
That's correct? Okay. I just wanted to make sure that was their goal, so I'm hoping, okay.
Tennessee is an English-only state. In English, there's a specific law that has to do with immersion and how this all transpires. So one of the things we have asked Mr. McDaniel to do, on behalf of the questions that have come forth so far, we consulted with state legal counsel, Rachel Supay, And we've asked that Mr. McDaniel make sure that that's included as a waiver so that the state has to respond to how they are going to deliver this immersive experience to students. So that will be a part, in addition to the current plan, they will have to submit that to the state with their current documentation.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
What's the location?
I don't know that they've solidified the exact location. It would be somewhere close to the Howard School, East Lake, Alton Park community. Did I get that? Okay, yeah.
Mr. Perez.
I think there's a lot of questions. I, too, Chairman, was not here on Monday, so I was just kind of making fun. But I did watch it and watch the. So I want to do a couple of clarifications. I spoke to Mr. McDaniel after also seeing this on the agenda for the first time. It triggered to me that I had a voicemail from Mr. McDaniel. I don't want to excuse myself because I do want to answer anybody who calls me anytime, but I had not returned the call. And so I called him just to speak to him about it. So I want to say that. My work is with the Latino and Hispanic community. I think there's questions because we would, just as a question, as a statement, we would never be allowed to do something like this as a public school. That's correct, right? That we know of, as far as we know.
It would be a challenge.
I mean, we would allowed. I'm not saying able to. I'm saying allowed.
Let me comment on that. So there is some debate about the interpretation of the statute. There's a specific statute, and so you can have foreign language instruction if it's required by the course.
So I can teach English. I can teach Spanish in Spanish class.
Right. This is a little different. So it's designed to be a program, and so it's for that reason that our recommendation has been, it sounds great, but you should probably list this as a specific waiver request for the commissioner.
Yeah.
Because under this, and so everyone's been concerned about the English language statute, but understand that under the charter school statute, there's another specific statute that allows the commissioner to waive every other statute that governs the operation of public schools, with the exception of some few. So in this scenario, you have a charter school with a specific focus. We don't presume to know how the State Department of Education may interpret the English-only statute.
But I'm asking about us. Like, if we wanted to open a school in Hamilton County Public Schools.
In my opinion, that statute would preclude us from doing that. That opinion
is questionable.
Is someone else may take a different interpretation depending upon the focus of the administration.
Okay. So basically we don't know, but we have and the reason I ask is I know a specific case of a teacher who shared with me that due to his class, he was showing a video in English to his students regarding the curriculum of his class. Many of these students are non-English language speakers. So he thought, with all the technology today, I'll put Spanish subtitles. And somebody noticed and called him out, and he had to remove. I don't know that the calling out was correct. I'm just saying this happened, and so because we're in English, that's the concept, right? We're English only, don't teach curriculum ever in a foreign language, right? I'm not saying that was a correct interpretation of that. I'm saying this happened. Having said that, I, Marco Perez, one individual, am a product, because I process this a lot, I'm actually a product of a full immersion program. I am not a product of a full immersion program in the US, I'm a product of a full immersion program in Costa Rica, where I was born and raised, where I went for many years until 10th grade to an English-speaking school in a Spanish-speaking country. I think I do well in both languages. I do English okay, when I try, and Spanish is my native birth language. So my point being, anywhere around the world that you go, you have this program. It's just not this program, right? This is the opposite. Because our students, and what happens is you learn, if you reverse it, you learn the subject matter in a language that you understand, and eventually you learn how to translate that subject matter to your language. But I'm testing now, Dr. Stewart, I know as much about education in this entire body as you know on the tip of your finger. You are a million times, but as I process, and so I heard your comment, I respect your comment. I know you, I don't even pretend to know as much as you know, so I appreciate that. I was just processing my experience and thinking that worked. But I do have a question, which is on testing regarding charter schools. Charter schools do kind of follow some of our testing, but testing is English only. And so in English only charter schools, in English only testing with a full immersion, folks back there, I assume that the shirts are supporting, you're gonna have a mess. That's gonna be complicated, more power to you. Please be aware of that if this passes, that this doesn't, because then the whole charter system as to how we evaluate it is going to come back to us. We are being given testing to evaluate and benchmark your work, and that gets really complicated. Okay, I like it. I like the idea. I wish we had opportunity within our public school system to test things like this and to teach curriculum and do that. We don't. Or we would have to go to the state, and yet the state allows a charter school to do this. One question for you, Dr. Parker. So we vote yes or no. Let's say we vote yes. I'm going to say what's the process? The assumption may be from the public. We vote yes, and tomorrow we have a charter. So I know that Mr. McNeil said it's not till 2023, August 2023, but that there's still a process to even Mr. Smith's question of they don't have a building yet, they're looking. So help me with that.
So when they submit a plan, there is a list in the back of the waivers that they have to then get passed by the state level. So there is still yet another layer at the state level of looking through the document, looking through the way that the program will be offered and all of the rubric that is set by the state. And those waivers have to be addressed by the state back to the charter agency. And so from there, it kind of goes beyond our hands and it's at the state level there. And so all of the commitments that have been made as a part of the plan, and we've gone back and forth to even get to meet standards, then it goes to the state level so that those waivers have to be addressed. And then from there, it goes forward beyond the state.
So for them, this is a step to start a very long process. So anyways, I had actually wondered about the idea some time ago. I know we have it in private education and here in Chattanooga only in K through 5. But anyways, I wish we could explore and experiment in ways that we can't. In the lack of that possibility, I'm not crazy about charter schools. I don't want our community to just blow up with charter schools, especially because they are experiments and tests and learning as people who are starting. And it's the same dollars going to that. But at the end of the day, this may perhaps solve the opportunity and access for some people to have the knowledge of materials. And we teach chemistry and math not because it's an obligation. We teach it because we want people to learn it. And for some people sitting in a classroom and not understanding, although we do also want them to learn English, but hey, look at me, we manage. So I did, because Mr. McDaniel is a lawyer. I did, when I talked to him, say, there may be opportunities here to fight the state on some things, as you, but he was very, or even fight us at some point, but he gave me the impression, I never met him except by phone the other day, that he would only do this if we embrace and support his work. And so for me, that showed me a lot about his character as well. So best of luck, but think about the state testing stuff if you do get this, because I don't know how you're going to solve that. That's your problem.
Ms. Hill.
Thank you, Chairman. For the future, I would definitely like for our internal processes to change so that not only this board, but our community has the opportunity to hear well in advance of a vote about charter application. That said, I do want our community to understand that the way that charter law is written in Tennessee, this board has some pretty strict rules to follow about implementing very vague or very wide open requirements for charters, which is to say perhaps more clearly, you can get a charter approved for just about anything in the state of Tennessee now. So tonight though, I do think we are fortunate. This is not just this is not a piece of junk. This is a good opportunity, I think, for students in Hamilton County. I did, for the benefit of my colleagues, I did get to sit down with Mr. McDaniel. I studied his resume and I called and spoke with his references. If I hadn't believed after a while in what he was talking about, I wouldn't have taken those additional steps, but I needed to have confirmed that I do believe that Mr. McDaniel has a commitment to our community. And I think his approach actually is pretty interesting in the space of our locally grown charters, in that he has spent a lot of time at a grassroots level learning. I don't think he came into our community saying this is the kind of school I want to have, but instead he's had what sounds to be a very long professional dream of beginning a school. And so knowing he wanted to lead a school, he spent time learning about what folks in our community would want and need. And I respect that. As opposed to, I have an idea and I will now inflict it upon you, which so often is the case. Also, I appreciate that this school's goal is to become completely taxpayer sustained, public education funding sustained within 5 years, so that it actually can be a replicatable model versus having a large annual fundraising campaign. They just intend to have a capital campaign annually. So I like that a lot, and I just got the distinct impression that the team that is pulling this together, while certainly idealistic to Mr. Perez's point, are willing to lean into the unknown and really work genuinely with the community on this. And frankly, I think there are going to be a lot of parents all over our community who will be very interested in this programming. I am continuing to be concerned about, how effective this will be, given the comments that we've had from our academic team. But I also respect what Mr. McDaniel brought up on Monday, that this is a space of innovation. And as a large system, we are able to innovate in some spaces and not in others. And so I look forward to seeing how they succeed. And this is a 3-year charter agreement with them. We can review it, and I know I will not be on this body at that point. But I do implore you all as my colleagues to be assertive and hold this charter group responsible for the success of their students. And if the students don't succeed, then don't reapprove it. Thanks, guys.
Mr. Walker.
Thank you. Just for clarity, so when Mr. McDaniel heads the school, does he report to us? But we are responsible for the student success and graduation. So how does that, and again, I'm sure that may be a whole lot longer answer than we can do.
It's a good question. They will have their own governing board. We are an outside agency that evaluates and assesses and gives feedback, and I believe there's even a report to the state that is due on the charter schools every year as we follow the rubric and what the state outlines for our part of the work with charter schools. It's a joint effort. We are outside, however, they work with their own board and their own their agency within to keep that structure in alignment. The requirements are the same for standards, testing, and accountability, but that external piece of governance is different from our board. Does that make sense? Because they have their own board.
And then financially, where does the money come from for the school?
So we do have some shared responsibility there with our federal dollars and even probably some of our local dollars, I believe. There is, it then goes to, it follows the children, basically. The dollars would go where the kids go. So if they enroll 600 kids, then that money would then follow the 600 students. And anything above and beyond that they would need, they have to, a charter has to sustain its own transportation, athletics. It's a self-sufficient with its own board to govern the programming that they desire.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ms. Jones.
So I said this on Monday, so I'm not gonna, well, I said my piece on Monday, so I'm not gonna repeat that. I was able to talk to Mr. McDaniel. I did talk to Neely this morning. For me, I'm not against charter schools, public charter options. I'm not, I just don't feel, even though I talked to Mr. McDaniel, I mean, and I could have interviewed him all day long. I mean, I guess I could have, but I didn't, honestly did not have the time to do that. In previous times when we've received charters, I was telling Neely, we normally get the whole application or a big chunk of it, and we're able to dissect that and look through that. I know there's a different process now. Neely and I talked about that. They're going to be making those concessions to fix that. For me, I just would have liked the opportunity to sit down and actually take the time. I mean, I read Chattanooga Preps, I read Chattanooga Charters for middle school, I read I read them because that is honestly how I've become more of a supporter of a charter school, because I understand what they're trying to do. And I'm not saying that I don't understand what Mr. McDaniel and his team is trying to do. I just would like to know a little bit more, because it would be innovative. And we are accountable as a district for certain outcomes as it relates to that. And so I would just like to know more. I personally, I don't know if I can ask this or not. I mean, I think we should allow time for us to be able I don't know the pleasure of my peers, but for us to see the application, for us to read it. And then if we have questions, like I don't know what I need to ask until I see what I need to see. And so I think maybe, I don't want to say tabling it, but allowing us the time to educate ourselves based on the application, then going back to Mr. McDaniel and his team and asking those questions, I will feel more comfortable in a vote. So if the vote does go through today, I'm just going to go ahead and tell Mr. McDaniel and his team, I will be abstaining from that vote because I do not feel comfortable, and I do not feel like I know enough to do that. That's if it happens today. But if we're able to have a discussion and do whatever, I want to support you. I just don't feel like I know enough, and I don't think it's fair to do that. I don't think it's fair to you all to do that. Not that I don't believe in what you're trying to do. I think it's an awesome opportunity for children. I just need to know more to be sure of what I'm about to legally say yes to.
Mr. Chairman, if I can comment.
Mr. Bennett.
So understand that the strictures of state law under which you're operating. So if the board doesn't take action on the charter application by, I think it's May 1 in this instance, then the charter's automatically approved. So you can,
I'm still not voting for the state. I mean, the state. What I'm saying is, I'm not anti Mr. McDaniels and his team. I just want to know more, and I think that's fair. I mean, I really think that's fair. We did it for every other charter school in this county. Like, why is this?
Laws have changed.
so what I'm saying is, if it's the pleasure of the board to put this, well, for your colleagues, if it's the pleasure of the board to put this off, you have a very narrow window of time you could put it off to. So if you wanted to put it off to next week, and maybe the board's ready to vote tonight, but you could approve it tonight. You could put it off, but if you don't act before May 1, then it automatically is approved by operation of law. Your third option is to vote no, but if you vote no, then the board has to give specific objective reasons for why you're voting no, so that they can fix it. So it can't be a no vote, I haven't had a chance to look at it, or it can't be a no vote on the basis of this is an unfamiliar idea to me. There has to be something objective. Like,
Yeah, I just don't.
Those are your three choices.
Right, and I understand all three of those, right? I mean, Neely and I talked about that this morning because I asked what were the options. So either way, because I know how state law is, ultimately, if they meet all the criteria, of course, we have to approve their charter. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying they don't possibly meet whatever this checklist is. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that I do not feel like I have done my due diligence to cast a vote for someone that is going to possibly affect the life trajectory of children without knowing if it's what that looks like testing wise, what that looks like. How do we know they're going to actually be ready when they graduate? I mean, how do we know any of these things? And we also honestly don't know them with the others, but I think there was opportunity.
So if I may, Ms. Jones, one of the things we would be willing to do is to work with Mr. McDaniel to make sure that that opportunity happens. As we are here at this juncture where this is all coming together, if it be the pleasure of the board, we could work with Mr. McDaniel so a presentation could be made. However, the process is the process, but we would be more than happy to work with Chat Academy to do that for the board if that's the will of the board.
Right, because even when you look at the summary that we were given, I don't know if Kelly did that or what. Kelly, I don't know who created this summary, but like I asked Monday to Mr. McDaniel himself because it says he's going to support. Well, they will be supporting students in districts 4 and 5. Well, when he and I dialogued across the dais, the district he's really going to be affecting is districts 4 and 11. Well, if that's the case, then that's incorrect in the application.
Right.
So I mean, that's what I'm saying. So there's opportunity for us to just make sure that things are clear before we just say yeah, because we have not seen this application. Let's just be honest. We have not seen this application that we're about to vote on. Kelly's seen it, Neely's seen it, whoever's seen it out there, but we have not seen this application. We saw a summary that somebody created that Mr. McDaniel didn't create, I guess. I don't know. Who created the summary?
Our consultant and myself.
Okay, so see? So what I'm saying is, in all fairness to him and his team, just as we've done everyone else, we should be able to see his application. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to impede the work. I just wanted to do my due diligence.
Ms. Thurman.
Yes. After we accept the application, and we're going to get it one way or the other, and I don't have a problem with that. I'm a big charter school proponent, so I don't have a problem with that at all. But you all still grade it. Do we still go through the same process? I'm not sure how the process has changed.
So for it to even come before the board,
So
we've
you've already
gone through
graded?
all of the revisions.
Oh, you've already
with the
gone through it?
committee.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, so that's what I want to know. So you all have seen it, you all have graded it, and that's usually the process, same process that we've gone through in the past, correct? Okay, I just wanted to be sure I was clear about that. I didn't think that had changed. It's not like they just came and dropped it off and we didn't, I know that, I'm just saying it's not like that they just dropped it off at the central office and they brought it to us for us to approve us to accept it. You've already graded it and done all of the same work that we've done in the past, correct? Okay.
Before we can even bring it
Right.
to the board, it has to meet the standard.
Okay, that's what I want to be sure. Thank you, Neely, appreciate it.
Mr. Bennett, if it is approved on May 1st, regardless of what this board, if this board says whatever, and it's approved May 1st, do they report to us still, or do they report directly to the charter, the state charter board?
If it's approved, if the board takes no action and it automatically goes into effect, it's still a Hamilton County public charter school.
Okay. And so it's still same as the ones that we, gotcha. Ms. Hill?
So help me understand the point of the state charter authorizing board.
So if we,
My understanding was that there was a state charter authorizer and that people could report to the state charter authorizer.
Right, so if we shoot them down, if we say no, then they can go to they can appeal to the state charter board. But the safety valve, if you will, where it's automatically approved by operation of law is where if we do nothing because we either don't meet or we don't get around to it, it's still one of our schools. But when I say one of our schools, what I mean in that context is it's part of our LEA. These are our kids. We are responsible in the sense that if there's an IDEA issue, it comes back on us. If there's a 504 issue, it comes back on us. So
if we approve it, but if the state charter board approves it, are they not forming their own LEA?
If the state charter board approves it, then that's right. And
Then
it's
that-
theirs.
okay.
But if we do nothing,
right,
gotcha.
Then we have waived our opportunity to say no.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
But it could be, so maybe Dr. Stewart or Mary Ellen, could you help us understand how much of our resources, like human resources, go into managing our charter relationship? Is it one person? Is it two people? Is it a lot of people?
I think it's, one person.
Right now we
on
have
an
Kelly.
academic, and then we have a person on finance staff that helps with the financial.
For IDA purposes, 504 purposes, our English language person would support them as well.
So the public funding that comes through to Hamilton County Schools, we write a check to each charter school. And then we also, because they are part of our LEA, we also provide special education services to all the children.
We don't provide that, but we provide them with support.
You provide them with supports, but we have speech therapists that go to our.
Yes.
So we do not have special education teachers that go, but we have itinerant supports that move into the different schools. Interesting. I just wonder at what point does it become a winning strategy for students and for school systems to say maybe there's a state LEA for charter schools that does all that. I don't know. Just thinking out loud.
Well, and honestly, Ms. Hill, that's been an evolving relationship over the years. As we've seen a lot more focus on 504 issues and the rights of students with disabilities, and as we've seen them move from Hamilton County School, and it's not just Hamilton County, this is statewide. You move from an LEA to a charter and then back. The evolving relationship has been, okay, this child is going to count towards district-wide graduation rates. If we need to help the kid, then let's help the kid wherever he is. So if you look at the contracts that we approved with charters 10 years ago, they look very different from what they look like now. Because 10 years ago, we basically said, you want to govern, you go. And any child you get is your child and it's your responsibility. And what legally, the problem with that is we are responsible to enforce the civil rights that those kids have. And so if we turn a complete blind eye, we're hurting the kid.
Right, and I mean, and arguably, I mean, this board is here to serve in the best interest of our students, regardless of where they go to school. But as the state laws have become wider and wider and wider as to the the requirements for a
Yes.
school, I said to Joe, we could have a koala bear academy, as long as you take the standards, everybody go to koala or whatever. That's when this board would need to think a little differently about how are we supporting Koala Bear Academy if and when that time comes and they come in droves.
Well, and-
Because our community was identified by the nonprofit where Mr. McDaniel has had some learning and fellowship time. We were identified as a community that needed some schools. And they didn't say what kind of school we needed, but we needed some charter schools. So this is the beginning of a wave, and this body may have a lot more of these coming across our desk. So just something.
I think your point is well taken, Ms. Hill. I think what I would say in response to that is our contracts have baked into them a lot more accountability than what we had 10 years ago. Because again, it used to be, here's your charter, good luck to you. What we have now is a much more robust process where we are looking at the operations with an eye towards helping.
Well, and the reason we had that change is because the schools weren't performing and the students.
Candidly, yes.
So they needed more support.
And there were a series of Title VI issues that arose from a couple of our charter schools, and we had taken the position that those charter schools were responsible for those violations. And the state said, no, they're still part of your public school system. And so what we began to do over the course of many years is when the charters came up for renewal, we put more checks in there. So this is a little bit more accurate to say that these are Hamilton County public schools that are run with more independence from the administration than, say, a Loftus or a CSAS. They maybe don't have our Focus 5. Maybe they have something else. Maybe they have different curriculum, but they're still our schools that are piloting something different.
Certainly.
And they're still accountable to this board for performance and to this administration for safeguarding the well-being of the kids. We even now have a provision where students who maybe are being disciplined, they have a right to appeal to our DHA so we can be certain that those children are being safeguarded.
Which I think is in the best interest of students, but I do think as a board that governs all the schools, it's something that we are going to see the landscape change.
I agree.
And the fact that we are, for the public to understand that over time, boards like ours are going to essentially be required to take on the responsibility without having true authority to be able to dictate the construct of the school. So just, we're running late, but thank you, Scott.
Sure.
Mr. Prez.
So just briefly to reiterate that really more for the public, this is what's coming. And so we will have to work well, hopefully, with those who open charter schools in our community. They are experiments in many cases. They even in the fact that they're a first-time open school with, I wrote down here, Koala Bear Academy. That's the name of my future charter school. But anyways, and to everything that I heard in the discussion, I heard we take on a lot of responsibility, a lot of liability, a lot of costs, and we hand that over. There was a post somewhere where somebody had a question a while back. I'm going to start a progressive charter school. What do you all think about that? And I said I would call it the most ironic charter school I've ever heard of, right? Like there's an irony to that. But we are where we are, and my goal is to work as best as I can with those who are choosing to walk into this step, because as everything that was said, we can vote no, but pretty much the state is, I mean, they had even said a lot of the questions I asked before, we will have to give up our properties that are empty to charter schools. Now I've heard that we don't have properties that would fit that criteria, but that's the goal, is to basically say, come in, that's what I perceive as one individual from the state, come in and we're gonna make it so easy for you to come in. So as a community, as a board, we're gonna need to learn how to walk in that new feature, so.
Ms. Thurman.
Okay, just one more point. First of all, we're not writing a check to for these students that doesn't already belong to these students. This money belongs to the student, it doesn't belong to us. So when we write them a check, if the money's following the student, it's per pupil expenditures, they're getting the money, it belongs to those students. That money does not belong to us, it belongs to them. So I think that's where we kind of take personal responsibility that you're taking something from us by doing this, but this is about the kids. If the money is going, following the student, which I think it should be in every school, the money should follow the students in every school that we have. I've always felt that way. So it's just another option for our kids, and I just think we just need to take that off the table, that they're taking something from us because we don't have anything that the taxpayers, their parents don't give us to turn around and educate their children. If this is what they choose, that's up to them. That's just the way I look at it, but I call for the question.
Gotcha. One question I have. Mr. Bennett, have we ever approved a charter school that did not have a location? I can't think of a time in my 4 years almost that we've been on here.
Ever? I seem to recall, yes.
Yes, we have.
Yes. We actually put into the charter agreement that they had to designate a location within, Gary Waters said it needed to be 120 days prior to opening. And then there was a time frame that we had baked into getting fire marshal approval. So yes, we have, but it
had provisions in it.
It's been a long time. Well, and so what happens next is
What school was that in? Like,
I
if
can't.
Gary Waters was here, they had to be CGLA or Ivy.
I honestly can't remember. I mean, I honestly can't. I'm surprised. I know that Gary Waters was involved. So go back in time how long that was.
You're like me, you're forgetting names.
The only thing I'll say.
So Mr. McClendon, so what we'll do is they have to get the waivers approved, but then we also have to put the charter together.
Yeah.
And so that will come back to the board. You will see the actual charter, and if they don't have a place approved between now and when we submit it to the board for ratification, we will have an exhibit in there about timeline for finding a place and building it out, so that these kids aren't left thinking in July that they're going to go to the charter school and they get a phone call in early August, hey, guess what? So we will allow for that.
All right. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Abstain.
Mr. Perez,
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yes.
Mr. Walker.
Yes.
Mr. Wingate.
Yes.
Chairman McClendon.
No.
Mr. McClendon, perhaps just a second. Rich, now, I don't expect to look up here 3 years from now and they're about 10, 15-year-old Dominicans who are on the Cincinnati Reds draft board for the 2028 class. Now, that's a prerequisite. That can't happen, okay?
Next, we'll go down to acceptance of additional Title III funds. Do I have a motion?
Second?
Any discussion? Ms. Hill? Oh, you have your... Okay, roll call. Oh, Ms. Thurman?
No.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Hill.
Yes.
Mrs. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. Perez.
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yes.
Mr. Walker.
Yes.
Mr. Wingate.
Yes.
Chairman McClendon.
Yes. Next, we will move down to the CSLA soccer field change to artificial turf.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Hold on.
Yes.
We had 2 seconds.
Smith.
And I don't
I'm gonna have to fight the
Walker.
second.
Walker.
Ms. Thurman?
Yes, there's just no way I can approve this. I went around and looked at Solid Daisy Middle School's football field, and it really is a disgrace what's going on at some of our middle schools versus what other schools have and what other schools do not. You talk about your equity issues. There's just no way. And then if we approve this, then we're going to have to approve it for every other school. And any school that has this, I think, has paid for it themselves. The Signal Mountain, the only one we have that has this. They don't have it there either, so nobody has it. So if we pay for this, if they pay for it themselves, that's one thing, but if we pay for it, it's quite another. We're setting a precedence here that we cannot afford to do county-wide, and I know there's going to be someone speaking about the softball program at Brainerd High School, and they have a lot of needs there. We have a lot of needs other places, and I just can't see spending this kind of money on artificial turf for a football field. I mean, like I said, if the school pays for it, that's one thing, but if we pay for it, it's quite another. And I just don't see how we're going to be able, for equity issues, be able to do this for everyone, especially when some of our athletic facilities are so lacking in some areas.
Ms. Jones.
I'm a firm believer when you know better, you do better. And so with that, CSLA is going to a space where they don't have the ability to have multiple spaces to do things. So the turf actually allows them the opportunity to play soccer, to play football, and any other thing they do on some grass that coaches tend to become possessive of. Tyner Middle Academy is coming up. Ever since I've been on this board now 8 years, there's always been this battle with soccer and football as to who gets to use the grass on the football field at Tyner High School. Because at Tyner Middle, that yard that's down in the dungeon is not an adequate soccer field. So it's always this battle for grass, I should say. But I know it's not grass, it's turf, whether it be real turf or artificial. I think going forward, we talked about this Monday, and I know some people were not here on Monday, but we talked about this Monday about looking at this as we do future bills, because it does allow for more equitable opportunities for children to play sports, because you're giving them opportunities to have a space to do that. And honestly, and somebody can tell me that looking at the cost, I don't know, but if we didn't do the artificial turf, but we built a soccer field, a football field, and what is the other sport they was gonna play on this we talked about? And lacrosse. How much does that cost if we did 3 separate fields?
I mean, I don't have the exact figure, but it would be more expensive than
Okay,
this.
so it also allows for competitions and things, right? To be able to come there to make money for the schools, right? So even though it's CSLA and we're starting there, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, I'm gonna advocate for this at Tyner Middle. And you're right, Rhonda, Brainerd softball team is here, and I'm gonna advocate for them a softball field too. I want everybody, we just talked about this with what Joe said, what I know, and I have a parent in this room. When I say they hold my feet to the fire, they hold my feet to the fire. And there's one father in this room, I've talked to him for a couple of years now about equitable access in athletics for his children in middle school, and he has a daughter that's about to cross the stage at Tyner this year. She was in the sixth grade, I think, when I started talking to you. So we have to think about what that looks like. And if we are talking about equity and we are talking about resources, no, every school does not have it. My desire is we start with the new schools, and when we're able to go back in our Blueprint 2030 and fix it, we may can go back and fix it, or we may can start to utilize some fields. You know, to me, that allows opportunity for people may share fields or whatever. We have to look at what that looks like to provide access. And to me, I see one field being cheaper than 2 and 3 fields. That's just me. So I am going to support the turf, but I'm also going to support if it come up for Brainerd a softball field. And they need lights at their track and bleachers at their track. I mean, everybody has something. The same way I supported a football field for Sale Creek, I'm going to support this for CSLA, and I'm going to support it for any other school that comes up, because that's what we should be doing, making sure that our children have what they have. And I know it might seem inequitable right now, but we didn't make the choices back then. We're making them now to change the trajectory.
Mr. Perez.
I just have a question. Why? Like, help me understand.
Yeah, so the main reason behind this is because there's literally, this will be the only athletic field that can support football, soccer, lacrosse, and will be running a middle and a high school program. And so when you think about just the wear and tear on the field and the ability for kids to practice, play, schedule, it makes sense. I will say that this is kind of stepping into a new arena, and there are some things that we need to think about moving forward. The location of that field, I fully anticipate when a soccer tournament comes to town, there's going to be someone wanting to rent that field for a weekend. And a decision we've got to make there is how do we take those funds? Because in my opinion, a large portion of that rental needs to go into a fund that is set aside to help restore these fields in a decade when you've got to restore them. And so this is new territory, and we've got to be forward thinking about how we sustain this and move forward. And to be honest with you, principal at Red Bank High School, we had a practice football field. If you gave every coach there the option of having one turf field or a practice field and a game, they would have taken one turf field.
I don't know, so I just want to know.
Mr. Wingate.
Yeah, I'm conflicted a little bit on it because, as Rhonda said, hey, nobody else is going to have a turf field. But I also know, and again, I'm just thinking out loud, I also know that we spent this much or more for a handful of tracks about 2 years ago, and not everybody got a new track either. So I don't know. I do understand, though. I do understand the challenge of middle and high school programs operating at the same time and operating on limited space. But one thing I'll say, too, though, and I'm thankful for, in 2017, our county commission decided that they would no longer fund facilities that weren't fully funded when it came to the outdoor facilities, which had not ever happened before. And this is going to be a new facility. Even though it's part renovation, part new construction, it's going to be a new facility. And if the commitment from this board to challenge the administration is that when we build new facilities, along with catching up where we need to catch up, that when we're building new facilities, we build them the right way, then I think I can get behind that. Yeah.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you don't do this, you're going to be playing on dirt because with that much activity. And Rhonda, I agree. Are we setting a precedent? I hope we are. Because I'd like to see every high school, at least football field in Hamilton County, be a turf field. I know that's a ton of money, but you can go right across the state line, right down there where you live, Tucker, and all those high schools down there have them. And from an injury standpoint, and when you start talking about reseeding and mowing and redoing and sanding and all the stuff you got to do every year, you pay for that turf. So I absolutely support this.
Mr. Walker.
I agree with what everybody said, and we said it Monday. We're going to get phone calls, and I agree, we're going to have to go and do what we have to do. But what Caritza said is we get a chance to change the trajectory of how we look at facilities going forward. I'm wholeheartedly for this. Because we as a board and administration, if we have that commitment going forward, and we know everybody can't get up tomorrow and have a turf field. But if we keep it in the front of mind and we treat all of our children across this county the same, I have faith that we'll be able to do these in the next 3, 4, 5, 10 years, whatever it is. But I'm all for it because, as Caritza said, we can change the trajectory of what we're doing.
Yeah.
Ms. Thurman.
Just a couple of questions. Is that the field that belongs to the city?
No, ma'am. It's going to be, if you remember going on Lakesid's property, there was a kind of an old softball, maybe it was a baseball field.
Yep.
So it's like you pull in, it's right there kind of sitting on the right. it's going to be located in that area back towards like the old parking lot.
So they're getting a new field as well?
No, this is the field.
Okay, but we're making it into a football field.
Right.
Okay, so we're getting that as well.
Soccer field.
Okay. You know, like I said, I've been on this board a long time, and history means a little something. I remember when we started magnet schools, they weren't going to have any athletics. That was because we knew it was going to be more expensive to run a magnet school program, and they said, well, we don't have to worry about athletics, and you don't have to worry about any of this. We're not going to do any of this, and here we are today. And I said then it was BS, and it has been. So anyway, I guess I just get the things in my life. Things we're talking about now will be forgotten, like everybody's going to have a turf field. No, they won't, because after the next board comes along, there'll be something else, and we'll never get them all. So I know how that goes as well. But I just wanted to get clarification exactly which field we were talking about. My brother used to play baseball up there, so I know a little bit about that. I just didn't know exactly which field that you were talking about. Okay, thank you.
When do we get a tour of
I was in there last week. It's nice.
Oh, that must be nice to be invited.
It was last minute.
It's not a lot.
It's not. It's yeah.
You need to give those bids.
I just want to remind all of us up here, we're in a facilities crisis because prior boards didn't make decisions like this. When you talk about a turf field, I got a little bit of knowledge when I worked at Finley Stadium. You want to talk about making our teachers' lives easier, but our coaches' lives easier? All of us are going to have our football coaches calling us tomorrow and saying, you mean I got to mow and they don't, or I got to seed or topsoil or whatever else you got to do and fertilize and all that stuff. But we're in this position because prior boards that set up here did not make forward-thinking decisions like this. This field will be good for at least 10 years. CSLA, I know they've already started fundraising for the replacement cost at the 10-year mark. I mean, they're already thinking about sponsorships. You can sell the turf inlays for sponsorships that can go towards that. But I hope this is a new thing, and I think we need to do it at Tyner. I mean, today we did the ribbon cutting at Eastridge, their new field house. I mean, their stadium and their locker room and their bathrooms were condemned 8 years ago. They just now got a locker room back that's adequate for them. 8 years after it was condemned because the school system's failure to maintain it. So I get it. We all have I mean, there's no better thing, and I love when we do it, when we start up talking about facilities, because it says, what about my district? What about my district? And what about my district? And y'all, I'm not going to be on this board. I got till September 1st up here. So either way, what y'all do with it, but maybe my last thing as chair is to have a big red alarm that says facilities crisis, because we can't stop talking about it. And it goes from athletic facilities to our schools to everything. So I'll leave my piece there, and we can go with roll call.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
No.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Wingate?
Yes.
Chairman McClendon?
Yes. Next, we'll go down to superintendent with the proposed schedule of sessions. Do I have a motion and a second?
Oh.
Nope, we didn't.
Okay, all right.
Move to approve.
Second.
Sorry.
Any conversation? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Wingate?
Yes.
Chairman McClendon?
Yes. Next, we will go to renaming Hickson High School softball stadium. Do I have
Second.
any conversation? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Absolutely.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Wingate?
Yes.
Chairman McClendon?
Yes. Next.
Mr. Chairman, before you move forward, I just want to speak to that issue just a little bit, because I think it's something we need to look at. I know we have a policy, and Ms. Ford helped me to understand this. When we when we want to name a facility for somebody, as in this case, Coach Tate, and we have to, of course, approve that. Well, when we do that, you know, before we actually name the facility, then it takes the surprise away. And I don't know how we get around that, but I would just encourage us as a board to look at that policy. That is our policy. But see if we can somehow fix that to where we can do things like this and it be a surprise for that coach or faculty member or whoever. So just a suggestion there.
Is that something that we can do through executive board? I know me and Dr. Robertson sign things all the time.
So the board's policy speaks to how it should be done, and in fact, Mr. Walker and I were actually talking before the meeting about some things that he and I need to work on anyway. There's no reason we can't add that to our pile, and our hope would be that sometime in the next 60 days we have a policy committee meeting where we can push some things out to the board for your review. We'll certainly add that to it.
We've done this before, Joe, and usually we just tell the board what school it is and kind of keep it here, and then when we vote on it, we'll say, vote to name a stadium or vote to name a facility after somebody, and you just don't put who it's to and stuff. We have done that in the past.
I think Mr. Smith's point is we're trying to work around a policy that we should probably just fix the policy.
Okay, sorry. So that brings us down to approval of fiscal year 2023 budget.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we not vote on the budget tonight until such time that we're maybe a little bit more clear about what we're going to be getting from the state. I know we had a lot of discussion, 3 or 4 hours ago, it seems like now, about what we were going to do, and I still would like to see us be able to give our staff, our teachers, a raise, and what that would look like. And so I think we'd be a little premature if we voted on the budget tonight. So the motion is to not vote on the budget until we get those numbers. Take you right.
Second.
We're all
Okay. Any discussion on that?
Ms.
Thurman.
I did ask for some more information too. I asked Justin for some information about the staffing formula we're using, how many schools are going to be gaining teachers, how many schools are going to be losing teachers, so we can see what that looks like before.
And we have that in our inbox. We just got it during this meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Well, there you go.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Wingate?
Yes.
Chairman McClendon?
Yes. Okay. I will turn it over to Ms. Robinson for delegations.
Great. All right. We have 3 delegates tonight. I have a Debbie Condry, Blair Brown, Letitia Chapman. You can go ahead and step up if you are Mrs. Condry. I'm going to read the delegation statement once, so if you guys don't mind, just to listen up. Thank you for your interest in addressing the Hamilton County Board of Education. During your presentation, please address the board as a whole, not individual board members or administrators. Also, please do not present complaints or concerns you have about an individual employee of the school system. If you wish to voice those complaints and concerns, you should contact central office and ask for a meeting with the superintendent, since the superintendent is responsible for individual employees. Please limit your remarks to 5 minutes. I'll tell you when you have 1 minute left. Actually, I won't, because it's right there now. So we just need to update this.
Somebody did suggest to me that if we could one day move
move
over
it.
here, so.
Am I in charge of that? Is that my duty?
I mean, really it is.
Yeah, it probably is. I will do that for next time. Or Sherry will help. You may begin.
Hang on just.
Oh, go ahead. Okay.
Sorry. We need to make sure the sound's on all the TVs.
Ooh, I thought we were already gonna move it. I suddenly felt powerful.
Enjoy it while it lasts forever.
Well, I think you and I, want to go move it with me?
But then we gotta connect it. No, it's too much
I know,
work.
it's
I
too
don't
much
wanna do
work.
it.
Okay, I'm out. Yeah, it's too much, too much.
Okay, go ahead. You go ahead.
Go ahead.
The Hamilton County School Librarians invite you to celebrate School Library Month through the voices of our students.
Oh.
Yes, I stopped it. I stopped it.
Go back. We are not stopping a clock. We're not counting a clock if our kids are talking.
Hey, quiet.
1 second.
Can you actually stop?
There you go.
There's fun books, plus there's a good teacher. I love my school library because there's so many good books to choose from. I love the library because it's full of reading and books. I love my library because it's so amazing and I love reading. I love the library because it's a really fun place and I love to read every day. My favorite thing about the library is that Miss Lane is so thoughtful on getting us books. I like reading because I feel like every time that you read a book, it's like another adventure that you get to go on. I like fiction books like Dogman.
This is the bone-chilling scary category, aka the horror section.
This is the fantasy section, which keeps people enticed with its great detail. And this is the graphic novel section.
I love this library because it has a lot of great books in here to read.
I love the library because I love to read. She always does so many different voices.
Our school librarian goes above and beyond for us every single day. She does everything from hosting classes to making sure that every student and faculty member gets the help they need.
I have to make Grandpa eat the foods. My personal favorite are the nonfiction. I found one. My favorite thing about the library is there's amazing different types of books, like graphic novels.
And I love our library because of the diverse books.
There's a lot of different options of books, and we do a book club, and it's fun.
And the reason I love my library is because we have plenty of books. We have the best librarian.
But there's so many options to choose. There's books for everyone, and you just have to really look for them, and you'll find them.
I like my library because it has a lot of different places that we can read.
It's like the best librarian I could ever ask.
And also a safe place that I love to read.
It's nice and quiet, and I get to eat lunch in here.
I like coming to the library because I'm fasting. Every time I'm in the cafeteria, I see a lot of people eating. But if I come in the library, it's peace and quiet, and I can always read different types of amazing books.
It's a quiet place to do my work. I like the librarian because he is involved with students.
She is so supportive. She is very sweet, and she always has something kind to say to us. And also, she just very open-minded.
And she makes sure I'm doing well every morning or every day. It's peaceful in here. I can come here and do work at the table. And if I need to get away space, I can come in here.
I like working in the library club because I get to work with all my friends.
And it's super calm to just read a book or do
Stations if you want.
I like the diversity of books, and I like how comfortable and chill the environment is, and all the activities as well.
The library at Rock.
And the librarian is awesome as well.
We love our library. I love the library.
I love the library because of my library.
We love our library. We love our library.
Thank you. Blair Brown.
Good night, I should say, instead of good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to come up here and just speak to you. I know I was here just last month about my son being a victim of a victim of being bullied in your school system. Well, I have emailed, as you know, a lot of people, and in these emails, I have asked for specific things when it comes to my child. And to my knowledge and to my ability, I came to notice that not all of his bullying reports are here. My son has been bullied in your school system since August, the second week of school. We are now almost to the end of the school year, and all I have is from mid-March from the second bully. There is nothing in this file about the first bully, nothing. I asked the principal today why. You want what the principal told me? Is because he was told that he cannot report everything, what is going on in the school. He has to pick and choose what is written down. I'm sorry, but my son's life was threatened. This boy threatened to cut my son's head off his shoulders. This boy punched my son, almost broke his nose. This boy has bit and scratched my son. And I am to be told that that's not serious enough to be reported in his file? But yet it's in the bully's report, but it can't be in his? I want to know why. I am mad because I feel like nothing's being done. And there's no proof in his file to show that he was a victim of it. And I want to know why. Why is it not here from August to mid-March when he was first bullied? I want to know where all that records are because the principal can't find it. I've sent emails. I have the emails on my phone where I've emailed people in these emails and no one can tell me a thing. I want answers and I want them tonight. Thank you.
Letitia Chapman.
Good evening, everyone. I am Leticia Chapman. I'm introducing myself first, but Mrs. Heaven Dunn, she's a softball player. She will be starting the speech, and I'll be finishing the speech up. And Heaven is also was on our mock trials team, so she was very eager to be able to speak with you all as well.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. As you can know, Ms. Chapman already introduced me, and I believe you already know the reason we're here. I've come here today to ask for a softball field. And I know what you're thinking. Why do we need a softball field? We can utilize any other field. We have a baseball field, so why do we need it? Well, first of all, according to Title IX, every female sport should have what they need. And we don't really have what we need. One of the biggest issues with not having a softball field is not being able to know the game of the softball, not being able to practice properly, not being able to have home field advantage, none of that. And of course, we could always pool for our own funding or ask for other support, but the thing is, our school funding is already low. And for the softball program, it's just even lower. And we would like to add, and if you really don't take us seriously by giving us the equipment and just the place to train, how will other people take us seriously? in our school, with other teams, and just in general. And now, as I close my part of the speech, I will be handing it over to Ms. Chapman.
Okay. Excuse me for my emotions. I am a softball player myself. I'm an alumni of Burnett High School. Everyone knows me as Ms. Chapman, Coach Chapman. And the softball realm knows me as Sean High. If you know, from Chattanooga, Tennessee, the High family, we love sports and we love education and we love kids. I started off with 33 girls that signed up, eager, ready. This is my first year at Burnett High School as a behavior specialist and as head coach, softball coach. As well as I just received the email to become head softball coach for Dalewood Middle School, as that is our feeder school as well. We started off with 33 girls that showed interest. Now we're down to 10, 11. We have a couple at 1, 2 that are injured. These young ladies that you see sitting behind me, ladies, please stand up if you play on Burnett High School softball. And I'm even more emotional because I've never had a group. I coach summer softball travel teams, and I've never had a group this passionate about softball. They come to practice every day. I wish I could show you all pictures, and anyone that wants to see pictures, I will show you after this meeting of where we practice at and what we have created. We utilize a portable in the back of Burnett High School as to put all of our equipment. We have nothing but the grass field in the back of Burnett High School. And there's a gentleman that taught me the game, showed me the love of the game, and he came and lined the field for us to make the visual of a field. He brought bases, he brought pitching mounds, he brought more pitching mounds so that I could train my pitchers. This is where we practice. I broke records at Burnett High School, and I have the pleasure of being here with Dr. Sharp, who was the assistant principal while I was at Burnett High School. I broke records my senior year that I never received any flowers for, any best of preps, none of that for. I don't ask for it. I don't want it. I'm asking for you to give us a field, a nice field, nice stands for our fans, so that we can build a softball program. Majority of my girls are freshmen and sophomores. Help me help them. These young ladies have multiple issues that they deal with in their community, within themselves personally, and softball has been their outlet since day one of tryouts. Majority of these girls have never, ever, ever stepped foot on a softball field, and they love it. They have sat back here during this whole 3 hours of a meeting saying, we're hungry, we need to use the restroom. But they sacrificed that because they said, Ms. Chapman, we're coming. We need a field. They are dedicated to the game. Help me, give me my flowers by giving me a softball field so that I can give my flowers to these young ladies and continue to plant the seed. The athletic department means so much in a school system because it helps the students in class. It helps the students build character.
I'm so sorry. Your time
You
is
are
up.
good.
I'm
Thank
so sorry.
you.
Before the meeting ends, I just want to say I've known Sean High since preschool, and she is a product of the High family, and we do know what they do and what they support, but she is very excited to be back at her alma mater, pouring back into them. I will say that in the work that I do in Community Forward and the work that I have done as the school board member for Brainerd High School, I know the importance of what this young lady just stood here and said as a student, and what Sean has said as their coach, and what it has done for them. And they're committed. They volunteer at the mobile food pantry after school. She's building character in her team. She's teaching them how to give back to the community that gives to them. And I just want to say to her and to the students at Brainerd and to my peers, I am going to do everything I can do to fight for that here and in the community, because I do know the importance of that. They used to play at Warner Park. Y'all still playing at Warner Park? To pay for it, right? Right. And so that's always been a situation. You have to cut my mic off. I can talk about it. That's always been a situation. But when the students came to me, and they came to me and asked what did they need to do. And just like at Tyner, I said, you know what? You have a voice. Use your voice. I don't ever want to sit at this dais and use my voice and not empower children that look like me and even don't look like me to use their voice. And so here we are again at that. So I just want to applaud those young ladies though, because they do sacrifice. They do sacrifice at the school to do other things aside from practice, because they're building character in themselves, and it is an outlet for many of them. And so I'm really excited to see what they're going to do. And Sean is right; she's broke records. So I can't wait to see what this team going to do. Because I do believe they're records, but we do know the importance, and we talked about this all day long about how those additional supports are beneficial to the character of our students and their outcomes.
I'll make a comment on that too. We actually, in the last 2 years, have also improved the softball, or created softball opportunities at Howard. And so I've seen it from ground up, and like the difference it can make in young ladies' lives. Anyways, all that to say, I mean, if we can make it happen for Howard, we absolutely need to make sure we're making this happen for Brainerd. And it's been amazing to watch the baseball program and now the softball program transform at Howard. And gosh, I just had no idea that you guys didn't have this resource. I'm really happy to know now. So appreciate your passion. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, information only, you have the legal services report in your agenda. And then moving down to events and announcements, we do meet a week earlier, correct, Sherry? In the month of May due to graduations. Board session on May 9th. We'll have the County Commission budget presentation on Tuesday, May 10th. And then board meeting that Thursday, May 12th at 5:30. Any other announcements, events?
Well, just for clarification, will we vote on the budget May 9th?
So we're not sure exactly what date. I don't know, Mr. Bennett. We would just have to give 48 hours notice to put the budget on the 9th agenda.
Yes.
But we've already noticed the meeting.
But for them to vote on
Well, is the intent to vote on the answer to the question is yes, it is 48 hours. But if the plan is to do it on the 9th, then we just say we're going to do it on the 9th.
Well, I think the plan is if we have the actual
you can put
BP
it on the
numbers.
agenda, and if we're not ready, you can ask us.
Well, the 9th we would have to call a special school board meeting because that's only an agenda session. So,
Oh, why are we voting for it?
yeah. Well, we have the commission budget presentation on the 10th.
Well, we don't have to do it the 10th. Trust me, we've been all the way to October.
Yeah.
So,
And I do.
so I mean, don't make them think that we absolutely have to do it that day, 'cause that's the other BS thing.
Yes.
That's just
No,
not
that is-
right.
that is very
They try
true.
to force you to do it, so you can, that's exactly right.
No, that is very true. So we'll put something out hopefully early next week or the week after once we get more clarity from the state. With that, we will adjourn.